Okay, can we have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion?
I think it's a little bit hard to digest a letter and then go ahead and vote on it. We even had a chance to read it. I find that a little hard to do.
Well, it is not a letter, it is a testimony. So it's slightly different. The information, your point is taken, Trustee Bureau, that the information will be hard to digest.
And it is, and he is speaking for the town of Paonia, the Board of Trustees.
That's why I wanted trustee guidance, because I can testify either way as a individual trustee or on behalf of the council.
And once again, I would please remind everyone to turn on your mic and speak into it, because literally you cannot hear you on the recording if you don't do that. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Before, it's already passed, but go ahead, Suzanne, and make your comments.
Can you tell us a little bit about the nature of what this might be?
Well, we'll find that out when it comes up on the agenda.
Okay, oh, so you're putting it on the agenda.
Yes.
And where on the agenda is it going to be placed?
I think we will put it after, we'll make it after modification of board meeting schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that is now on the agenda. Yes.
Could I
Dave.
have an abstain vote on this? 'Cause
Yes,
it-
you can have an abstain vote.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we need a motion to approve the agenda
Motion to approve the agenda.
as amended.
Amended.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up. I may have misinterpreted our conversation during the work session, but my understanding from where we left it at the work session was that we were going to table any discussion of changing the meeting schedule until after we hold an additional session with Cassandra, where we could discuss the benefits and to including the public in dialogue and the benefits for the staff and making sure all the stakeholders could be involved in that conversation. So I would propose tabling that until after our May session with Cassandra from the Grange.
Okay. We have a motion. Can we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so my understanding at that meeting, and I spoke to Cassandra prior to talking to the board about this, was that the 3-week schedule was not part of that. That what we were going to talk about was how to address public concerns in a better fashion, and that it was a much broader discussion, and that the 3-week thing was not on it. However, we have a motion and a second here. Any other discussion on this? Yes. Karen.
I thought that there was a schedule that we would try this out, in May and see how it worked. So we wouldn't be doing it until May anyway, but we have talked to Cassandra before that.
Let me see.
I don't know.
Yes, actually, we would have the session with Cassandra, I believe, is on the 4th, and that our first meeting, if we were to change the schedule, would be the 18th of May.
So then why don't we just leave it alone until we don't have to do anything till then?
Okay, any further board discussion? Yes. Dave.
So I'm a little confused. Does that mean we table it for now because we're going to meet?
Okay, the motion is to table.
Okay.
So that's what we're going to be voting on in just a minute. So we're having discussion on the tabling motion right now. Okay.
Thank you.
Are we all clear? Okay. Suzanne.
I took the time to listen to the YouTube video of the work session. I wasn't able to attend it. And I was actually surprised because it wasn't really a work session that was noticed as being about these meeting schedules. It was conflict resolution within the community, I thought. I thought it might have to do with political signs and people's conflict. I had no idea it was a discussion in the work session about our meetings. So I definitely don't think it's a good idea to vote on this thing tonight. But perhaps if you wanted to discuss it a little bit, and I see there are more audience members in the room that we normally have had before, and perhaps they'd like to know a little bit about what the suggestion that you're proposing is, and it might not be a lengthy discussion, but just a little bit more public noticing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne. Any other comments?
Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, I did just want to provide clarification that what Ms. Watson states is accurate. That conversation was not on the agenda and wasn't part of the official meeting. It came up organically in the conversation, but I wouldn't necessarily be making decisions based on that conversation. And as a reminder, this is the second time it's been on the actual agenda for discussion, which was the last board regular meeting discussion and direction given was to direct the town attorney to prepare that calendar and bring it back to the board at this meeting for discussion.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the table to table item number 7. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
All right, shall we do a roll call, please?
Nay.
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 Aye.
Aye.
Oh my God, the mayor gets to vote. We should, it's a red letter day. Well, I vote we keep it on the agenda, so I vote aye. Oh, I mean, I vote nay. I vote that we keep it on the agenda, which would be nay to the tabling of the motion. All right. Now, can we get back to our motion to accept the agenda as amended? I believe Trustee Knudsen made the motion. I believe Trustee Johnson made a second. Any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, next on the agenda is announcements. I do have an announcement. We have Arbor Day coming up on the 30th of April, and I will happily read the proclamation that will be made at that time. The legislature of the state of Colorado has adopted an act designating Arbor Day, and whereas this holiday called Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world, and whereas it is the purpose of the to encourage the harvesting of our forest crops by approved conservation methods, and to encourage the protection of our forests from the scourge of devastating fires, insects, diseases that destroy the beauty and usefulness of our woodlands, as well as their wildlife. And whereas trees in our town increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of the business areas, and beautify our communities. And whereas, through the cooperation of all residents of Paonia in shade and forest tree planting and proper conservation practices in harvesting timber, we can pass on an enduring heritage of a vital natural resource to succeeding generations. Whereas Paonia has been recognized as the Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue supporting tree planting efforts, now therefore I, Mary Backren, Mayor of the town of Paonia, hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the community of Paonia, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect trees and woodlands. And further, I urge everyone able to do so to observe this day by the planting of one or more trees and by participating in one or more programs that the sponsors of Arbor Day may provide, including the planting of trees along Box Elder Avenue. Now, the tree board will be planting a tree on Box Elder in a place where a tree was removed this year. But the town will also be replacing all the trees that were taken out on Box Elder as well on Arbor Day, so that we are keeping our promise that we would replace trees that the town has removed. And we will also be planting the tree on Onarga that was removed. All right. Any other announcements? All right, hearing none, let's move on to recognition of visitors and guests. Is there anyone who would like to address the board on a matter that is not on the agenda? Yes, sir. Please come forward, state your name and address. Okay, one more time for the record because it wasn't caught on tape.
My name is Stephen Gulick. I live at 449 Vista Drive in Creek Vista
Thank you.
subdivision of Paonia. I wanted to bring to the attention of the town and the Public Works Director that we have a problem in Apple Valley Park that needs to be addressed. I've been playing pickleball there for 8 years, and up until last year, there was a porta potty that everybody could use. That got removed last year, so for the past year, there's been no way to use the bathroom there. On the weekend, we have 10 or 20 pickleball players and tennis players, and sometimes, you know, there's a birthday party in the playground area, lots of dog walkers and stuff, and no latrine. It's ridiculous. This is a sanitation problem because I've asked people, on a busy day, half the people come from Hotchkiss, Cedar Edge, Delta, and beyond, and they say, where's the latrine? And what's wrong with this town? And it's a little strange, and I asked some of them, what do they do? They say, sometimes, you know, when we need to go, we go to Don's Market, then we come back to the park. Others say they go behind the biggest bush. Others say they urinate directly in the creek. It's not a good situation. And so I hope, I don't know if there's anyone here who can explain why the porta potty got removed and what the plan is to restore it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We do not usually answer questions at this point in time, but someone will get back to you on that. Thank you. All right, anyone else would like to address the board on a subject that's not on the agenda? Yes, Suzanne. Turn on the mic. Thank you.
I hope I'm not speaking too loud, but I have listened to those YouTube videos, and they can be really frustrating trying to listen to them. Suzanne Watson, 903 2nd Street in Paonia. Throughout 2020, the Governmental Affairs Committee was tasked with investigating our building inspection system. They conducted research and extensive public outreach with several well-publicized open meetings. There was ample opportunity for citizen input. The GAPS Committee, the Governmental Affairs Committee, brought their work to the board, again with public input, and the board voted to take action on what was essentially a no-confidence vote with regards to Colorado Code. Today, progress with a building inspector hire has stalled, and the administrator tasked with a hire has decided to wait until 2022. If there are complicated formats as to what type of inspector we hire and the complexity is slowing the hiring process, this needs to be investigated by the board in a public forum. After the March 23rd board meeting this year, Mayor Bachran, without receiving board approval, conducted a building inspector survey despite the board's previous decision. I ask, is the mayor attempting to question the board's vote with an informal survey? I would like to remind the board of the mayor's words last November. Mayor Bachran said, quote, I would like to gently remind the board that when the board makes a decision, we walk out of the room, whether we say yay or nay, we support that decision, that we don't undermine what the board has done. If the board had wanted to reconsider its decision now with a legitimate survey, they must publicly establish the parameters and follow established rules. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to approve the board? I'm sorry, we're not going to allow clapping or other displays of public approval or disapproval. Thank you. All right. All right, seeing none, I'm moving on to staff reports, administrators report. Corinne?
I've included my report in the packet. I have nothing additional to add, but I'm happy to answer questions about the information provided.
Okay, questions for Corinne from the board? Yes, Dave.
I just wanted to express appreciation for that tree board study that was posted on the website. and I forwarded it to someone else that's really interested in planting trees on their property, and they thought it was a really great resource, so thanks for that.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, this is a little more general, but I think this is as good a place as any. So generally before our meetings, I try to submit my questions that are specifically better. I try to submit my questions that are specifically directed toward the staff in advance to give staff more time to consider the questions, make sure they can come to the meeting prepared, so I'm not putting people on the spot and potentially getting answers that aren't as thorough. What's been happening is I'm getting responses from the staff in writing, which is really appreciated. I communicate well in writing, I like that. But at the same time, these are comments and questions on the public packet, so I feel like for transparency's sake, that should be part of the public record. So I wanted to check with staff, with the board, and see, and possibly with Attorney Nerlin as well, to see the best way forward on this. Because I do like submitting the questions in writing. I think it's beneficial for the staff, is my understanding, to have that in advance. But I don't want to create a situation where the board is getting answers and the public is not getting those same answers.
Okay, yes, Mr. Nerlin.
So, I think it's a great point, frankly, to be honest with you, and oftentimes the timing of things is a little bit awkward, just based on the fact that I think people are trying to get ready and prepare for the meeting, and sometimes questions come in, literally at the 11th hour, if you will, or materials, if you will, from staff. And so I think, this is an assumption, so take it from what it's worth, but sometimes the perspective from staff is, oh, well, this is a low-hanging fruit with respect to a question, let me just get back to Michelle. But I think the point is well taken with respect to creating the record, and maybe it just is a discussion from this point that's for the template, or what you send out is to kind of get the neurons firing, if you will, so that we can be prepared to answer some of the questions in an open meeting.
So would the direction be then to, for Trustee Pattison or any other trustee that send them in, to then ask those questions specifically in the open meeting? Because the only way I could see of making the email communication part of the public record after the fact would be to include it in the next meeting's packet, so it was part of a public packet. And at that point, some of those answers and question and answers might not necessarily be relevant any longer if it was something that was in the packet for tonight. It definitely is a timing issue.
Yeah, definitely. Michelle, would you like to ask your questions tonight?
I'm comfortable with that. I also want to be mindful of time and not take the entire board meeting with my staff questions. But we can try that and see how it goes.
Okay.
All right. So I do have some questions on the administrator's report. The first one is when, for Travis's testing that was in the administrator's report, when will the results from that testing be available?
They're available immediately after the testing, so I'll have them the following day.
The test?
The test is the 20th.
The 20th. Thank you. And if Travis is the only employee who will be licensed, does that become an issue if he's out sick or on vacation?
Currently, it does not. You're required to have an operator of record on record, but the delegation of tasks can be to other staff. And that is also part of the plan with our other staff member that works directly specifically for water and sewer, is that he is taking classes and will be getting certifications as well as a backup.
Okay, thank you. And for the master plan update, do you have an expected timeline of when that's going back to the Planning Commission and then back to the board?
We tentatively have it on the schedule for the April 30th meeting at the Planning Commission, as long as everything is ready to go. If not, we will modify the schedule to keep online with the proposed schedule, so we may have to have 2 meetings in 1 month instead of 1.
Okay. And final question, any update regarding electronic billing for town utilities?
Our deputy clerk is looking into that with our current mail services, is the company that does the the little blue bills that go out. And I also received some communication last week from SIPA, who hosts our website, about a program that they're offering along with fillable forms through the website that I'm investigating, but I don't have any updated information on that yet.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for Corinne from the board? All right, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, let's start with Suzanne.
There was just a mention of the Planning Commission meetings, and I would like to point out that our state statute says that we have to have a regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting every month, and what we're calling regularly scheduled planning commissions are all over the clock. They're 10 o'clock sometimes, there's 1 o'clock other times, there's 5:30, there's 6:30, and that's not a regular meeting. That's not something that the public can depend on. And I would suggest that we look at that, and I know it's been this way for a long time. It's an ad hoc committee, but that's technically wrong, I believe, and I was hoping that maybe we could look into that when you're scheduling the master plan meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, others? Yes, Paige.
Paige Smith, 215 Delta Avenue. And I just wondered, what is the ORC, temporary ORC person that is is standing in for Travis while he's waiting to take the test? Exactly what does that mean? I've never heard that term.
An ORC is an operator of responsible charge. So it's the person that has the certifications required to operate the level that your water system or wastewater system is rated at based on the state. It comes from CDPHE.
So is this a person? There's actually a person standing in physically doing this work?
A person who has stepped in and registered with the state as the operator of responsible charge and has a delegation plan for Travis to continue oversight until he completes his testing.
Okay. And is this person being paid by the town?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Yes, Thomas.
A couple of things. First, thanks for looking at fillable forms on the website. I presume it's based on my comment from last meeting. But from what I'm reading, you're looking at forms like web forms to be filled out. Is that correct?
They would be all of the forms that the town, park reservation forms, building permit forms, any kind of form, request to be on the agenda, that would be downloadable or fillable online, and when you submit them, they're then electronically submitted.
Okay, so like an automatically submit. Okay,
Yes.
that's like way more than than I'd asked for. I just hope you're not wasting a lot of time on like CCC forms. My thinking was like fillable PDFs would suffice for that thing. And then secondary, since Travis's testing is on this, I was wondering if we could get a timeline of the failures or delinquencies and associated fees from the history of, I guess it started in October was the first failure, just so that we could see it all in one place, because I'm on the advisory water committee and I have no idea about any of that, when it happened or what happened. We didn't hear about it until the last meeting. So if we could get something that kind of lays out what happened and what might be done in the future to prevent that, I think it would be extremely helpful. And that's all. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, let's move on to Public Works Utilities. Travis?
I have submitted a written report and don't have anything further unless you guys have any questions.
All right, questions for Travis from the board? Yes, Michelle.
So on the report, number 3 says that our lead and copper tests are all clear, and then number 6 says that we're working with SGM on lead and copper exceedance. Could you explain how those are related?
When we resampled for our first half of the 2021 year, all of those lead samples come back in compliance with the state health department. With the exceedance, we still have to go through what they call a corrosion control program. So we have it on the shelf. If we do have another exceedance, we have the corrosion control plan already established to where we could put it in place.
Thank you. And one more question on the sod installation happening this week. Is that drought tolerant sod that was selected?
I'm not sure if it's drought tolerant. It was the only sod place in Mesa County, or it actually was in Mesa County that we could get sod to service.
I'll add to that because I did the follow-up on that after we received the email, and I hadn't had a chance to let Travis know that I got the answer. So it's a hybrid Kentucky blue, and it is drought tolerant, and happy to share the information and the CSU extension information that was provided to me on the appropriate way to water and information about that sod.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Yes, Mick.
Yes, I see that we have 5 trees ordered for Arbor Day. What kind of trees are those?
Yeah, go ahead. I can't remember off the top of my head. Corinne's got them written down.
So we have 5 trees on standby, but the actual trees haven't been determined for each location because I'm reaching out to the adjacent property owner to see if they have a preference to replace the trees that were removed adjacent to their property. But I do have that list in my office if you'd like to see the list that were the approved trees and what we're looking at.
Okay, so we are going by the approved trees.
Yes, we are.
So, thank you.
Any other questions for Travis from the board? Okay, seeing none. Anything from the public? Yes, Paige.
Paige Smith, 215 Delta Avenue, and I have a question about number 2 on Travis's report, the consumer confidence report and the final violation notice complete. So we will be getting paper copies of the consumer confidence report, correct, to everyone who's a water user in the mail? I saw that it was on the web page. And then the final violation notice completed, is that the violation that was required the $4,250 fee that had to be paid from the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, which was associated with the sewer plant? I just haven't heard much about that violation and the fact that the town had to pay that much money for that. It just hasn't, I don't know that it's come up in any of these meetings, and I think it's kind of important that the public knows that the town had to pay a actual cost to the town of, or the state of Colorado. And I bring this up because back in October we had a meeting where there was a staff or a citizen got up and asked, have any of the violations cost the town any money? And the answer was no, because I don't think at that time you'd been assessed the fee, but it was settled November 19th. So there has been a fiscal effect to the town for non-reporting of monitoring data at that sewer plant. So I'm just bringing it up again because I feel like the water in this town is the most important thing for this town to progress. It should be the #1 priority, and we have a wonderful set of gentlemen working on the advisory board, and Tammy met, which we so appreciate. They should be given everything they need as soon as possible to continue their work. And I really would like to see the trustees and the staff and the citizens, for that matter, this is a priority. We cannot do anything. I don't know how you could have a subdivision off towards 133 without water taps. So please, we're spending money on fines. We have a pattern of violations. I have 3 letters for failure to test backflow prevention devices, 2021, 2019, and 2018. We have a pattern that shouldn't be happening. So please, everyone here, this is serious, and please, let's get the tour for you all at this, up at the water treatment facility. I don't think you've had your tour. There's been no video. The water, and again, I would love to see a meeting that does nothing but talk about the water system and what can be done, what can't be done, and especially things to consider going into a drought. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paige. I know that the fine was brought up at least one meeting, if not twice, and discussed. So that has been a public issue. All right, any other questions for Travis from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
Melissa Brady, Paonia, Colorado. I think it's a wonderful idea to have a special water meeting. I like that idea. I second that.
Thank you, Melissa. Well, and as a matter of fact, when our water survey comes back, this might be a really good time when we have the results of all of that to then have a special meeting about it. All right, anyone else? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to the police report. Chief Ferguson is not here, and he indicated that he doesn't have anything really above and beyond what his report said, so we are passing. All right, finance report. Cindy?
I submitted a written report and we'll take any questions.
Questions for Cindy from the board? Yes, Michelle.
On page 12 of the packet, it mentions that the exempt fuel report that was submitted to the Colorado Department of Revenue was initially rejected. Could you explain why that was rejected?
Because of the file size.
Thank you. On page 13 of the packet, for the potential shift to Connect for Health, it says a policy change would be required. What type of policy would need to be changed?
Our personnel policy will have to be changed if it's even legal to go in that direction. We're still researching our options.
Okay, thank you. And on ClearGov, it says the requested changes have been made and are waiting for a second review. What second review is required, and is there an anticipated timeline for that?
Bryn, can you read what I wrote, please? Thank you.
Cindy reviews the corrections after ClearGov completes them. She submits the corrections and then reviews after ClearGov completes them. Her focus has been on the daily tasks and audit preparation. This is audit week. She is comfortable that the major issues have been corrected, but wants to take another review to help fine-tune and keep fine-tuning the product. She is open to assistance from any trustees if they're willing and have some time to offer to assist the review of the ClearGov document.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Yes, Karen.
I just wanted to comment on the documents and the financial documents that we get that are in this packet. If anybody wanted to know what happened to the 32 cents that was missing, it's in here. I mean, everything is in here, everything you wanted to know. And it's just great work. Thank you, Cindy.
Okay, anything else from the board? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to attorney report. Bo?
Thank you, Mayor. In addition to my report, I'd like to note the following. One, with respect to the meeting with the Paonia Ditch Company, that had to be rescheduled. That was set for this afternoon. So we'll be following up at a later date. And two, we have initiated discussions with DMEA with respect to an update of the franchise agreement. So I anticipate that we'll have more for the board to consider at a later date. That's the only supplement to my report, but I'm happy to answer any questions with respect to the contents.
Okay, any questions for Bo from the board? Yes, Michelle.
On page 14, there's a statement that you'll provide an outline addressing the public comments on marijuana regulation prior to the board meeting, and I don't...
I was wondering if you might be able to share any details about the citizens ethics complaint.
At this point in time, I don't believe it's appropriate. That complaint, I believe, is subject to a core request if you would want to make that request, but I have not had an opportunity to brief the board in executive section with respect to the legal options that are available. Just quickly, because that has been brought up, what I would like to do is schedule an executive session for the next meeting where I can outline the legal options that are available to the board, and then there could be an open discussion based on the opinion provided in terms of the direction that the trustees would wish to take.
Thank you, Mr. Derwin. Anything else? Yes, Suzanne.
I'd like to question the use of an executive session for a board legal advice, because when you're talking about board members, it's a public, they're elected by the public, and the public has a right to hear about their public officials. You can't take public officials to the woodshed in a board meeting. You can do it with employees, but I'm a little bit concerned about, I don't know, is the board member going to be part of that executive session, or are they going to be asked to be out of the room?
Okay, so a couple of things. One, it goes with the caveat that I don't typically provide legal advice in an open meeting. Two, there's been some case law that has changed that says that you can't take employees to the woodshed in the executive session anymore. There was a 2020 case that changed that. The purpose of the executive session would strictly be with respect to legal advice in terms of the scope of the investigation and what is available. It would not be discussing the details of the complaint that was filed.
Okay, and we do have a process that I think has been laid out somewhere in our rules about how these situations are handled as well, and I hope that you would refer to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the treasurer's report. Mr. King.
Bingo. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to report that the Finance and Personnel Committee and myself and the Finance Director have reviewed fund balances, and they are confirmed. We've reviewed and released the payroll for 2 periods in March and April, and we've reviewed disbursements with the Finance and Personnel Committee and recommend their approval. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for Ross from the board? Okay, seeing none. Anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to disbursements. Can we have a motion on disbursements? Oh, come on, somebody take the reins here.
Madam Mayor, I move that we approve payment of accounts payable in the amount of $90,104.36, and the loan payment for the water and power loan, $11,671.70. Norris retirement payment, $1,680. The Chase credit card bill of $6,680.97. The Amazon bill, $1,107.04. And payroll $22,749.44, and payroll taxes $27,522.57. And we have another payroll taxes of $10,088.78. And another payroll of $25,825.61.
Okay, do I have a second?
Madam Mayor,
Did I miss one?
Yes.
we
Mr.
need to also ask for approval of the payroll direct deposit for 2 pay periods.
We had the 22 and the 25.
Yes.
I think I said them both, but did I miss
You
one?
listed them as transfer to payroll, or transfer to payroll, but.
Okay, first we transfer the money to the payroll account, and then we pay it out. It's the same money, and it's the same amount. If you approve one, you approve the other, I think. But so we had 2 payrolls in this period. One of them was $22,749.44, and the other was $27,522.57. That was transferred and paid.
I'm sorry, Karen, that was $25,825.61.
Cindy's right, of course.
Okay, do we have a second?
Just for the record.
I'll
Yeah.
sec-
Do we have a second?
I'm looking at the treasurer. Can I second this? Thank you.
All right, any questions from the board? Yes, Bill.
All right, Bill.
I had 3 questions. The Peter Marshall for 5,975, it says CDOT design. Is that the street painting out here? What is that for?
That was a
I
CDOT.
believe that is for a part of the CDOT grant that we are paying for benches to be made, fabricated, and this was a down payment on that.
Okay, thank you. The roof excavating for the 3,500, it says for the purchase of a pintle hitch. Is Roof a dealer on these, or what is the situation there?
No, it was a used trailer that he was getting rid of, and we purchased it from him.
So it's not a pintle hitch, it's a trailer?
Yeah, it's the pintle hitch trailer that I had in the budget for capital expenditures.
Okay, I just think it would have been handy to have the hitch trailer after the end of that instead of just the hitch. Wind water for the sewer plant repairs, what was broken?
It was the influent pipe coming into the headworks.
Okay, and the wind water for the water meters 2462?
That
Those-
is for the backflow prevention that we're installing with the meters if they don't have it already.
Wait a minute now, say that again.
They're the retro setters that sit in the meter yokes that have the double check valves in them. If we don't have, if some of the meters don't have them, we are installing them with the new meters.
Okay, so some of these may go into inventory and some of them may be put into use, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Yes, Michelle.
I see we've got a payment on page 21 to the North Fork Pool Park and Recs. I'm wondering if our contract or agreement with them is available on the town website or otherwise could be provided for review. I'm not questioning the expense, I'm just curious to see the agreement.
It's not on the town website, but it is in the town office, and I can make it available.
Okay, thank you. And then I have questions on, primarily on the Chase credit card expenses. 5 questions there. The first is the 4933 CED, and then it looks like a phone number following. This is on page 26.
That was wire for the to wire the sewer plant for the SCADA system.
Okay.
Some electronic system. It was wire.
Okay. And the Prime Video charge?
That was a credit. They had made, we had gotten a charge and they fixed it.
Thank you. And I do see the negative sign there now, so I appreciate that. Cam Streamer?
That is the software we use to run that camera.
Okay. And the Cedar Point Health?
That is a DOT physical for a CDL driver.
And the $993 to USPS?
That is envelopes, postage paid envelopes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Bill.
On the Amazon charges, the 2 carbon fiber hard hats.
Those are hard hats for Public Works for safety.
Are we going to start requiring all of our public works to wear hard hats, which is not a bad idea, but
We do require when we're entrenching.
you require when you're in training.
Yeah, if we're at a water repair or sewer repair, or if there's hazard and stuff, we are requiring.
I'm sorry? Oh, trenching, not
Oh,
training, okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Right, any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on. Okay, Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, Thomas. Didn't see you back there.
So I'm going to do this again, just so that we retain perspective on the amount of money that we're spending and what everybody's doing to make that money. Get a total of about $195,000 for this 2-week period. Is that correct? Nominally? Ish. Okay.
Trying to find the number.
That's okay. I
Is
can
that-
just use the average. We'll just say the average for the annual budget is $162,000 every 2 weeks. They've split that up over 2,000 people who make $24,000, $25,000 a year on average. That means that all these people back here each worked 6.7 hours in the past 2 weeks to support what's going on here. Okay? That's 13,000 man hours that we all put together over the past 2 weeks to make sure that this works. Okay? So when budget season rolls around, I'm going to keep reminding you guys, okay? When budget season rolls around, keep that in mind, that we are all working very, very hard to try and create income for you guys. And I personally would appreciate it if I could see that that money is being spent very wisely and very frugally. That's my comment for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. Anything else from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to, we have a motion and a second to accept disbursements. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes. All right, let's move on to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Yes, Michelle.
Just one comment on the consent agenda. I noticed that for the last couple of packets, we've had a full lease agreement for a local business included. And I just want to suggest that it may be more than the board needs to see, more than the public needs to see, to show a full lease agreement between a local business and their landlord. My understanding is the information we need is to know that the business has permission to operate in the space. So I wonder if it would be sufficient for staff to just provide a statement to the board that yes, the lease agreement was provided to staff, and yes, the business has permission to operate in the space, instead of taking another 5 to 30 pages on the packet.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Dave.
At our last work session, we had a very poignant question for each one of us as trustees. What do we think our highest priority is for the town? Each one of us made an answer to that, and I think it's really important that the public see what our individual answers were to that question, and they weren't included in those minutes. So I'd encourage a change of the minutes to at least reflect that. I think it's good for the citizens to be able to see where their trustees stand on priorities.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on the consent agenda? Okay, anything from the public on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. Let's move on to unfinished business. First item on the agenda is the retail marijuana ordinance 2021-01, second read. All right. I think we do have one rather substantial citizen comment. Would you like to address that, Bo?
I'd be happy to, and frankly, I appreciate, the comments that were put forth during the meeting and subsequent to it with respect to that citizen comment that was pretty in-depth. I've done a line item review. I don't know necessarily if that's the way that the board wants to go about kind of addressing some of those issues. That I'm fine with that. frankly, I think that a number of the issues were somewhat semantics or stylization with respect to preference that writing preference that I would have versus the citizen. The citizen comment did bring about 2 changes that I would suggest that we undertake with the reading, the second reading, if you will, and the adoption, and I'd be happy to hit upon those corrections. And then subsequent to that, there was kind of one other area that was within that citizen comment that I do want to hit upon, which was the question why there was the nuisance provision with respect to the penalties. That was so that we could capture the greatest amount of enforcement if we had a non-complying business, particularly under the nuisance code. 7230 allows for the enforcement against businesses which may be dangerous to public health. So it allows for additional enforcement and remedies, including if the town felt like it was necessary to pursue a temporary restraining order if you had a non-compliant business. So that was the logic behind that addition. The other avenue or aspect of the comments that I do want to address would be with respect to the reference to the occupational tax. That provision absolutely is not in the code. What was envisioned and what I think we talked about kind of going back to the first of the year is that the goal is to get this introduced, and then upon introduction, staff would be developing the application fees, and we would introduce the occupational tax ordinance once everything was clean with respect to this. The other 2 points with respect to that substantive citizen comment provision, there was 2 corrections that I would agree with. One was, I think, comment 5 that was a cleanup on the titling, where the cross-referencing on the titling, which referred to, hold on 1 second, let me get there, the term of license. That was a cleanup that needed to be a cross-reference, and then there was an incorrect reference. If you look at, I think it was under comment 18 with respect to operating fees and license terms, referenced Article 6, and it should be Article 4.
Yes, Michelle.
I appreciate that review. You did mention possibly doing a line item review of the comments, and I know that that would be time consuming. At the same time, I feel like there were comments presented that, to my reading, make a lot of sense, but then I'm not a legal expert, and I think it would be beneficial for the board to better understand and for the public to better understand how we're arriving at the final language if we could, as quickly as possible, go through in a line item way and address all of those comments, if that's a possibility.
Yeah, it is, and I was just, if I may. Yeah. So, I mean, as you guys know, take direction from the board. We've had a number of meetings on this with respect to the workshop, the first introduction, the prior kind of discussions that have been in place. This has also been set up to the state regulator for review, and there was nothing found where there was any sort of substantive issues with it. So I was just a little bit recalcitrant in terms of doing a line item comparison because I don't, take direction from you guys. So, and that's not always kind of the follow-up with respect to the public comment. But again, I want to reiterate, we absolutely are willing to consider things. So if you want me to undertake that review, I'd be happy to do it.
I don't want to make that decision in a vacuum. I would love to hear what the board thinks because I understand that it'll be time consuming, but personally I think we would benefit from it.
Okay, input from the rest of the board on this issue?
I'd say make a motion.
I think that's a good idea.
I move that we review the comments submitted by Paige Smith on April 5th, one at a time with a quick overview of the rationale for either accepting or rejecting the comment.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right. I think we can just go to vote on this without further discussion. All in favor? Sure.
I didn't submit written comments, but I wanted to point out when you're talking about the permits that they might have to obtain from the town, there's no such thing as a fire permit in Paonia, so you might want to eliminate the word fire permit. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right. All in favor of a line item review?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Bo, it's in your court.
Thank you. Certainly, if the trustees wish to proceed with that provision within the recitals, I wouldn't have any issue with that. It is addressed in the third recital with that reference to the code section.
Someone on the board like to move that we change that?
I move that we leave it alone.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
For clarification, Attorney Nerlin, you're saying it is sufficient as is because it's been referenced elsewhere in the ordinance?
Not only that, but again, that we're just citing our authority here with respect to regulate. We're not drawing in any sort of, within the recitals, any sort of specific definitions with respect to medical marijuana there.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, from the public? Yes, Amanda. Oh, yes, go ahead.
I move that we do not change it.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Anything else? All right, all in favor of leaving that comment as is?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The gist of the comment, the language in the strikeout must be removed where there's a reference to marijuana stores because it falsely attributes the definition for marijuana stores to the Colorado Constitution. So again, the language is collectively referred to and not a specific definition under the Constitution. Again, somewhat of a semantic approach, if you will, in terms of trying to short circuit and not provide that definition because we're speaking directly to the board's authority to regulate, and we're not providing our definition of retail marijuana stores. That's later in the ordinance where we have our definition provisions under 6420. If the board feels like it wishes to have a specific definition as tied to the Constitution, I think the appropriate definition would be marijuana establishments. And then the goal with the recitals was to mainly recognize the town's authority to regulate, not specifically to define the terms, because we have that within our ordinance.
Yes, Michelle.
I would move that we just remove the phrase collectively referred to as marijuana stores by the Constitution. I agree with Ms. Page on this one that it's not collectively referred to as marijuana stores by the Constitution, that it's not worded that way in the Constitution. So I think we could just strike that and be fine.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Yes, Dave?
More of a process discussion. Each of us as council members have been handed Bo's document.
Right.
And I wonder if we could make that available, especially to the public, but also to the person that made these comments.
Yes. Okay. And, let's see, who else? Karen, you had something? Oh, turn on your,
Sorry, I just don't,
oh, you're off again. You're off.
this is not where the definitions are. The definitions are in a different section, so I think we should disregard that suggestion. And if you read Bo's comment number 2, it says the definitions are in a different section, so.
Other discussion? Yes, Bo.
So just quickly, I'm fine with that, but I think that you just need to have consistency, because then if you look at the third recital, there is the same issue with respect to marijuana stores and the use of retail marijuana. So if you're going to have kind of a consistent approach, I would suggest that you have the same language within the 2 recitals, which frankly I think it does now, but if you're going to kind of go with the suggestions, you need to make sure that you pick that up on comment 3. And again, I don't have any issue if you wish to do that. I'm just saying, you know, from a drafting standpoint, we want to make sure that there is this consistency.
Yes, Bill.
So how would, whereas, the number 2 whereas read?
I believe it would read exactly the same as it is, except if if her motion passes, we would remove the collectively referred to as marijuana stores by the Constitution.
Okay, so the cultivation, testing, and manufacturing and retail sale of marijuana will be left in, and then, but the reference to marijuana stores will be removed. Wouldn't it be easier to take out the cultivation, testing, and manufacturing out of there?
No.
Yes, Michelle.
So if I could clarify, my concern is that the Constitution that's referenced does not collectively refer to those activities as marijuana stores. So I feel like that clause is inaccurate, even though I understand it's not our formal definition. Even just removing by the Constitution, I think, would make it an accurate statement.
By the Constitution, yes.
Okay. Would you like to amend your motion then?
I amend my motion and suggest that we strike just the language by the Constitution from the second whereas.
Okay. Does the person who seconded agree with that? I think that was you, Tammy.
I would like to refer to the author of the comments and ask what she thinks,
Okay.
if I may.
Ms. Smith?
Thank you, Page Smith, 215 Delta. So my issue with my comment number 2 is there's nowhere in the Constitution that a businesses that's cultivating, testing, manufacturing, or selling marijuana is not referred to as a marijuana store. Marijuana store is only a store, defined in below my second paragraph. That's the Trojan horse that I was warning you about at the last meeting. Because if you say a marijuana store, which is what you all are working on establishing, it is collectively referred, that the 4 things ahead of it are all called stores. Cultivating marijuana is not a marijuana store. Testing marijuana is not a marijuana store. Manufacturing marijuana is not a marijuana store. A marijuana store is an entity licensed to purchase marijuana from marijuana cultivation facilities, marijuana and marijuana products. So the store is buying it for the people that are cultivating and testing, but you don't want the cultivation to be called a store. If you do that, you have just essentially created another form of an establishment, which is on the bottom of my page 2, comment number 5. So what this is doing, in my opinion, is substituting the word marijuana store for an establishment. And that was my main point. The very first meeting, when I stood up and said, you don't want to use the term establishment because that's defined as a cultivation facility, a testing facility, a marijuana product manufacturing facility, or a retail marijuana store. It's not inclusive. A store is one of 4 types of establishments. And if you were to keep collectively referred to as a marijuana store, you're essentially taking that establishment umbrella and putting the 4 types of facilities back under establishment, but you're calling it a store, which is improper. So if you read the definition just below my strikeout, you'll see what a marijuana store means. You don't want people cultivating here. That's not what we voted for. So hopefully that helps.
Bo?
We're in no way, this ordinance in no way has any sort of regulation with that. It's just a matter of recognizing the town's authority to regulate. We get into the details with respect to our definition and our defined terms. And so the only thing we're trying to do with respect to that recital is recognize the ability that the town has to regulate these stores or facilities. If there is a concern, I frankly don't have any objection with respect to Trustee Patterson's suggestion, but if you wanted to have the reference to the constitutional language, it would be a marijuana establishment and the definition thereon.
Okay, and yeah, my reading of all of this is we specifically state in this ordinance that the only thing that are going to be allowed is a retail marijuana store and a medical marijuana store, and nothing else is allowed in this ordinance, and that's specifically stated in the body of this ordinance, and that at this point we're just saying the Constitution gives us the ability to do this.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Bill.
this particular Board of Trustees is saying that, and this particular attorney is saying that, but for generations to come, we don't know how it's going to be interpreted, and we allow this language to come in. Are we letting the camel stick his nose under the edge of the tent for future interpretations? And that's the part that bothers me.
Just for clarity, that what you're going to have is, the recitals are again recognizing your authority, and the ordinance will be published, and it will be, if there is a question, we'll go back to it, but it will be under Article 4, beginning with those sections 6.4, that will have our specific definitions that will be readily available.
So,
Michelle.
in light of Ms. Smith's clarification, which was helpful to me, I would like to withdraw my amendment and go back to my original motion of removing the language that says collectively referred to as marijuana stores by the Constitution, not because it impacts what's going to happen within our code or the definitions that we create, but because it's just inaccurate language.
Okay, Tammy, you had the second. Do you agree with that?
I do. I would second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Okay. To make sure that we understood, it is to remove the statement collectively referred to as marijuana stores by the Constitution. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. That motion passes. Comment number 3.
So, well, we need to make an amendment then to the third recital, because that also has the marijuana store language within it. So, again, the purpose of the first part was to use that so that we could have it as a kind of common definition within the recitals. With respect to the change that has been made, I would suggest that we get a motion from the trustees to also remove the definition of marijuana stores under the third recital.
Can we get a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I'd like to make that motion that we coordinate those two actions.
Okay, do we have a second? Discussion. Yes, Michelle.
So how would the third whereas read with that change?
Well, we're gonna have to insert a new definition. Again, I would suggest if the better definition would be marijuana establishments. Under the Constitution, again, we're not using that as a definition with respect to the regulation, but just with respect to the authority that the board has.
Tammy?
Exactly which page, which paragraph are we looking at? I think we need to be really careful with where we place establishments.
Is we have the definition of marijuana stores where it reads, prohibits state licensing of marijuana establishments to regulate the time, place, and manner in which marijuana stores may operate and to limit the total number of marijuana stores. In theory, we could change that to retail marijuana stores, but we also have to pay attention to introducing the ability to regulate medical marijuana facilities, which is under Article 14 of the Colorado Constitution.
Yes, Michelle.
Okay, if I'm understanding the legality of this section correctly, the whereas is meant to say, or is intended to say, this section of the Colorado Constitution gives the town the authority to make decisions about these things.
Yeah.
So calling them marijuana establishments within this whereas wouldn't change the fact that in our actual definitions and terms, we state clearly that only retail and medical stores are allowed. All it's saying is that we do have the authority to regulate establishments. And then further on in the ordinance, we are actually regulating those establishments by saying we only allow stores.
That's
if that's accurate,
that's correct. That's absolutely correct. And
okay.
The reason that I've included the broader definition is because we want to start with the fact that if somebody comes in and they want a cultivation license or they want something, we've addressed that we've got the authority, but we've gone from the broad authority that we have here to the limiting aspect within the article.
Okay. With that understanding, I am comfortable changing the language to consistently say establishments within the third whereas, because what we're saying is that we as a town have the authority to regulate these establishments, and then we go on to regulate them and say we don't allow anything but stores, and that makes sense to me.
Yes.
So I move that we do that.
Which means that we make no
what that
change.
motion is, Amanda?
Okay, let me say that again.
Yeah. I'm sorry, what?
Oh, I'm...
All right,
No,
thank you, Amanda.
there is no offense taken, believe me. If you want to take a stab at the motion, I can withdraw my motion, because I don't know if I understand it as clearly as you do.
So you're withdrawing your motion?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, Tammy.
I would like to point out one thing, and that's that two things. One is I cannot find a reference of marijuana stores in all of the stuff I looked through. Try to be so fast. that doesn't include retail marijuana stores. And I finally found it. Colorado medical marijuana is sold at centers, medical marijuana centers. So I don't know if we want to figure out a way to introduce medical marijuana as a marijuana center rather than a store, because it's not really a store. You can't just walk into a medical marijuana store and buy, so it's not a store. So, sorry, Bo. I think we need to figure out a way to clarify this so that we get everything retail marijuana stores, medical marijuana centers. Sorry to put a big hitch in this, but we want to get this right the first time.
Oh, well, I absolutely don't disagree with that approach with respect to wanting to get it right. Again, I think we have some procedural stuff here because we had Dave's withdrawal of his motion, and then are we accepting Michelle's motion? Was there a second on that?
No, we haven't had a second on
Okay.
Michelle's motion yet. We've added Tammy's discussion to the whole thing. So, all right, let's do this. Michelle, can you restate your motion so that we can all remember what it was? I believe it was the establishment.
Yes, and subsection 16 in that whereas does specifically refer to establishments and that doesn't include medical, is that correct? Because that's in section 14? Okay, so on the third whereas, I move that we change stores to establishments.
Okay. Do I have a second on that? Any further discussion on stores to establishments? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. Moving on. Number 4. Yes, vote. So does that need to be included in that whereas? Is that
No,
what you're
it
saying?
doesn't, just with respect to trustees Mack's
Oh,
question
okay.
with respect to the facilities.
Okay.
Comment was comment 4, which was a request to include the ballot language under the next recital, which talks about the special election that was held on November 3rd, 2020. I don't have any issue with that personally. The board has already certified the results of that election, and so that's in place. So I don't know necessarily, because again, it would be the Article 4 aspect that is going to be in the code, not necessarily that ballot question. But if the board wishes to reflect that full ballot question as per the comment, I don't have any concern with that.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion on that one?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we include that language, because I really am influenced by Bill's camel under the tent thing, and I think this clarifies it for future generations about exactly what people voted on. So if it's in here, they don't have to find it somewhere else. So I
Okay.
move that we include that.
Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Okay, that motion passes. Moving on to number 5.
So number 5 was a suggestion and a correction that I agree with respect to in the cross references, the Article 4, Paonia Marijuana Code, Section 6470 is operating fees, and the title's been changed to operating fees and license terms.
Okay, so we don't need to do anything on that. A motion? All right. Can I have a motion to accept the changes on number 5?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on. 6.
So comment number 6 is suggesting that we remove the definition retail marijuana establishment and insert marijuana establishment. So basically, this was a definition, the retail marijuana establishment was the definition that initially started with the committee. I don't have any issue with respect to it. It would be my suggestion that we keep that definition that's included within the code. The town has the ability within the code to kind of have its definition, and then the marijuana establishment and the use of retail marijuana establishment, they have different kind of statutory and or constitutional definitions, if you will. My suggestion would be that we keep the existing retail marijuana definition.
Okay.
So moved.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Now we're to, where are we?
Comment 7 and 8.
Okay.
So, again, I think that it was a good catch by Ms. Smith, if you will, within her memorandum. I do think it would behoove the trustees to keep those definitions. The request, I'm sorry, getting ahead of myself because I realize that we're in somewhat of a vacuum here. Let me get to the comment. So both comment 7 and comment 8 suggest the removal of definitions G and H, land development regulations, and marijuana license cap. Start with H. That was a request from the trustees after the discussion to make sure that it was clear what this cap looks like, if you will. That the language is not used kind of throughout the ordinance, but I do think it would be good. It would be my recommendation to include that definition because, one, I think that it would be something that we could be using on other town forms and or licenses, if you will, in terms of cross-referencing that section.
Okay. No, keep both. Is that correct?
And then G, I think we would be okay. I mean, I would be okay either way. With H would be my recommendation that we keep. G, I would be okay either way. I think the point and the intent with G, again, this was a committee definition, was to recognize that there, any applicant or anybody kind of referring to the code also has to be aware of other land development regulations within it.
Okay. So, I would suggest we have a motion to keep both G and H, if the board wants to go that way.
I move that we keep definition G and H.
Do I have a second?
I second it.
Discussion? Oh, Tammy?
If somebody wanted to look up the land development regulations, they're not going to find them. We don't have something titled land development regulations. We have a town code. So I'm not sure why we're using LDRs, land development regulations. We don't have a document. We don't have anything that says LDR, land development regulations, in our code.
Okay. Okay. Paige?
You. And that is definitely one of the reasons why I thought G should be removed. But the second reason is, in all my experience, when you have a definition in a document, it's because you're using that term somewhere in the document. I could not find where the rest of the ordinance mentions land development regulations, LDR, or marijuana license cap. So that was really my primary reason. You have a definition that's not, it's not being used in the body of the ordinance. So I don't know why you have that definition. That's essentially was my main point. And the fact that there are no land development regulations you can find in town code any longer.
Okay.
Thank
All right, any further discussion? Yes, Tammy?
I would like that we amend the motion
Okay,
to replace land development regulations with land use laws contained in our town code, or I'm not sure exactly what words I would use, but refer to the land use regulations in our town code,
so add the words in town code,
in our town.
or
code,
embodied
yes.
in the town code, or something like that?
Something along those lines, yes.
Okay. Yes,
I think that Suzanne may have a suggestion on that subject.
okay, Suzanne?
I just wanted to speak to the land development regulations. It used to be a standalone volume, and when we did the codification in 2015, it was just renumbered. It's called Chapter 16 zoning and Chapter 17 subdivision regulations. But that being said, I believe when you did the formula stores, that's in Chapter 16. It's in the zoning code. So why not point people specifically to, if Chapter 16 is now the land development regulations, perhaps you should be a little bit clear about what those are. It's about clarity and knowing where to look if you wanted to see what the rules were.
Okay.
Thanks.
So Tammy, would you like to make that, just make it Chapter 16 and Chapter 17 of the town code?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
Add chapter 16, add state specifically found in chapters 16 and 17. I'm trying to think what's in 18. That's okay, yes, okay. So, chapter 16.
Okay. All right. Can we get a second on that amended?
Second.
Any further discussion on that? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right. We're
That
down
was
to-
an amendment to the motion? That was an amendment?
Oh,
to
that,
the-
you're correct. Now, so can we have, all in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Which was, to keep H and then to change the wording of G. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Next, number 9.
So comment 9 is a strikeout of medical marijuana store and a citation to section 501. Again, I think that 104 is the correct citation because it refers to the town's ability to regulate a marijuana store.
Okay.
I move that we keep the wording that we have.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
That it is an unlawful act to be involved in those situations. But if the board feels like it's confusing, I don't have any issue with it being removed. Again, because of the unique nature of the fact that we're just doing retail and medical, I felt like we want to hit upon that, but I don't have any issue with that suggestion.
Anyone want to make a motion?
Yes, I make the motion that the, is it number 10?
Yes.
Language submitted be substituted for what's in the draft ordinance.
So that we keep the language in the draft ordinance, correct?
No, I think that we're striking the word cultivation,
Okay.
process, and manufacturing from the ordinance.
All right, thank you. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Okay, Paige. Yeah.
we're not.
No, he does not. Comment 9 refers to in your document about Colorado State Statutes 4410-104 versus 4410-105. Well, on my page it's 9. What I have as submitted is 9. Yeah. Well, unfortunately, what was submitted to the board is number 9. All right. So we have a motion by Bill to, we have a motion by Bill to drop cultivation, processing, and manufacturing. Do we have a
And I
second?
think Dave seconded it.
Okay. Any more discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Nay.
Moving on. Comment 11.
Comment 11 is a suggestion to have a reference that it would be an unlawful act to sell to a minor. To the extent that the board wants to take on that language and include that as a, in addition to that section 64060, I don't have an issue with it. State statute would obviously be the kind of control with respect to that, which prohibits the same.
So what you're saying is it's not necessary?
Anybody want to make a motion? Okay, moving on. Comment number 12 seems to have been updated, so it's correct. Comments 13 and 14 deal with semantic differences. So
Uh,
it's just a wording issue.
That's correct. Ms. Smith had provided a suggestion. Wording changes are recommended to clarify the intent of the provision.
Mayor, so are we accepting the semantic changes?
Or if you want to make a motion to, otherwise we leave them as they stand in the ordinance.
Are you happy with your language, Bill? Okay. Well, that's all right. I just asked it.
Okay. Yeah, you're the one that went to school for many years. Yes, Dave.
I'd like to make a motion that all the comments where there's semantic differences, that we accept the recommendations by our attorney.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Yes.
Are you jumping forward through the document with that motion?
Yes.
Without reviewing the semantic changes yet?
We are looking at each one of the individual semantic changes and including them in the motion.
So are we looking at comment 17 then?
Yes,
Are you-
16, 17,
13, 14, 16, and 17.
Should probably, maybe let's just do 12, 13, and 14. Because I think that 15 we should address.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to address 15. It
Yeah.
was just Dave's was the semantic differences, so it'd be 12, 13, no, 13, 14, 16, and 17 are what we're currently addressing.
Yeah.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. All right, now to number 15.
So the suggestion in the memorandum was to include the specific code provisions and some detailed language with respect to the Colorado Department of Revenue rules on signing and advertising. My goal with the draft was just to provide the reference, but not to have the details, because if those changes are made by the Department of Revenue, we wouldn't necessarily pick them up, and then that becomes outdated.
Okay. Anybody want to make a motion to change anything?
I move that we leave 15 as written.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second it.
Discussion? All right, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Comment number 18.
So, a lot of the changes, through 18, most of the changes reflected on needs to be a resolution adopted by the Board of Trustees. Resolutions by their nature have to be adopted by the Board of Trustees. So a bit redundant, if you will, but for clarification, the trustees wish to include it, I don't have any issue with respect to that change.
Okay, we do have an issue with Article 4 reference.
Yeah,
So
and then we do have a good catch with respect to Chapter 6, but Article 4.
So D would be changed to Article 6.
Yeah.
So we're under comment number 18. So D is the one change. D is in dog. All right. Someone would like to make a motion to at least change the Article 4 reference?
So we're changing to Article 4,
Yes, from 6.
and I move that we change the wording from Article 6 to Article 4.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All right. Did you want to say
Second.
something, Dave?
No.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, moving on to comment 19.
But one other portion here with
Oh, sorry.
comment 18, there was a concern with respect to the language, all other fees. That language is used by me as a catch-all to the extent that there's something that comes about that was not contemplated. Again, it would be the trustees would have to, it couldn't just be an arbitrary fee that would be levied by the staff. The trustees would have to adopt that in the fee resolution, but to the extent that something comes about that's uncontemplated, that was the goal of that
Okay.
So we could do it, okay.
All right, good. Unless somebody wants to make a change, we will move on to comment number, oh, yes. Suzette.
I'm a little bit confused about the fees because in the past, when the town has worked on the fee schedules, there's always been an ordinance that has applied to the specific fee. It's the legal basis, I thought, the something that stands up in court. And the amount is what I always thought was set by the resolution, but the actual fee was created in an ordinance. So you don't get these mystery fees that just appear places. So it's fair to people to know what fees are going to be charged. And I wish we'd be a little bit more prepared for that. I was looking, I see some places have a delivery permit fee, for instance, in Denver. It's not just a transporter permit, or license. You have to have a delivery permit. That's only good for 1 year. And the state is doing some of that. But it just would be kind of nice to be a little bit clear about what the fees are so people aren't hit with surprises. And I think an ordinance is the most stable place that you can find a fee described. That's all I have to say. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. All right. Did we vote on the Article 4 thing? Yes, we did. So that was covered. Does anybody want to make anything, suggestion about the fees? Any changes?
Just says we can have it.
I would like to hear Bo flesh that out a little bit.
Okay.
So traditionally, the fees are set by resolution. With respect to the ordinance, the goal was to define, to the extent possible, where the fees would come into play. It's a little bit difficult because we haven't developed these applications as of yet, nor do we have an understanding of what exactly that's going to look like from a staff perspective. But the direction, at least initially, has been to put this forward. So my goal was to capture the ability from the staff to be able to put that together. That resolution will be approved in a public meeting. It will be a public document so that, and I anticipate the direction could be given that that fee resolution is also adopted, or also attached to a application packet so that somebody's aware of where this all kind of is coming from. But it's a little bit difficult to winnow all of that down because we're in the process of developing this application procedure.
Okay, great. Yes.
Thank you for letting me speak again. I guess we have a website now that resolutions are stored there, but I have seen wording and fees change mysteriously on resolutions in the past, on fee schedules. And, but now I think there's actually a professional code company that's posting our resolutions, so maybe that'll take care of that problem. But I was a little concerned about, if you're adopting this tonight, you have 30 days after its publication to come up with all this, like the forms and the fees. And how do you anticipate getting that done? I don't know, are you adopting it tonight and then publishing it right away? Or are you going to take some time to get the ducks in a row as far as the application process is concerned? Because it sounds like there's a lot of, we're not sure how this is going to work yet.
We've been working on the application process and the resolutions. It's just not completed yet because the primary task was to complete the ordinance that was going to regulate, and any modifications would affect the application process. So once the final document is approved as a final second read and the board approves it to go, it will be modified with the corrections. It would go for the mayor to review and to sign. It would be signed and then receive the town seal, at which time it would go to the newspaper. And then 30 days after it's published in the newspaper, it would be in effect, and at that point would be when applications would be available. And the resolution would go to the board before that time.
Okay. Yes, Paige. Well, you can't be picked up on the YouTube if you don't talk into the mic, unfortunately.
So I want to make sure that you looked at my suggestion to, in D, as in dog here, may be renewed as provided in section 150. And the reason I asked that is 150 talks about renewals and how you go about it, whereas this section only talks about a renewal application filed late will be subject to a late fee. So I just didn't know if you wanted to have the section which talks much more about a renewal, which is section 6-4-150.
So no, I guess I didn't read that or understand that from the comments. As we look here, that looks like the correct citation. I think that's a good catch, frankly.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I would like to second the motion that we approve adding section 150 to the code.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's move on. Nearing the end here, comment 19.
So comment 19 was questioning why we had that public nuisance reference.
Explain that.
And so, again, I'm just trying to provide the broad, in the effect that we do have an enforcement issue. We can go after the business for a breach of the business ordinance nuisance provision under the nuisance code. We can also levy a fee against them under this provision, if you will. I think that the nuisance would be the stronger position if we had a business that continued to operate without a license and we were looking for a restraining order.
Okay.
I move that we leave ours alone, that section 19.
Okay, do I get a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Finally, comment 20.
20 is correct. I mean, we haven't put that definition together yet with respect to the occupational tax. We had discussed that. You know, the goal first and foremost was to get the licensing in place, but that will be next with respect to getting the cross-reference in place. We'll also marijuana or the prohibition of marijuana, but wanted to get this here first.
Okay. All right. Anybody want to? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, my only concern with that is if we're saying this will be an active ordinance 30 days after publication, I want to make sure that the occupational tax that we will be able to make that an active ordinance within the same time frame, so that we're not bringing this out and saying, okay, you can apply, and we don't have the occupational tax on the books yet.
So I guess I would start by, I mean, I think with the application process, those applications will be developed, and staff will present those to the board for consideration and approval. And then thereafter, we would, and during that process, we would talk about an application time frame or deadline, if you will, in terms of once those applications are approved, when they would be due, and thereafter, once that's done, the first kind of date that licenses would be issued. And frankly, with that, and it kicks me under the table here, but I anticipate that's probably going to be sometime this summer before, at the earliest, that the first licenses will be issued. So with that, my goal, and we can't collect the occupational tax because there won't be any sale until the first licenses are issued.
Yes, Bill.
Question. With all the changes tonight, are we going to have a final copy to approve, or we expect to approve the changes tonight and make this a final document? In other words, are we going to come back with a clean document to approve?
That is up to the board.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, it's not, I think this has been a really good process and collaborative process, but if the board feels like it's not the cleanest, we could take all of the comments that were provided this evening and put it into a new draft subsequent to tonight, or you know, we've certainly created a public record, so I do feel like we've gone through this process and we could adopt on second reading, but it's a board decision.
Yep.
Mayor, I move that the changes be incorporated into the document, and that next meeting to bring a clean document back for us to approve or not.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes, Tammy.
I'm wondering if we could get a red line copy when that comes out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And Dave, were you the other one?
Yeah, my question is, so the second reading would then be delayed till next week.
Correct.
So now, Trustee Budinger, who started the Pot for Potholes, has worked for about 50 cents an hour since this started.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yes, Michelle.
We did have some other public comment that we received.
Right. Well, let's decide whether we're going to do a final vote on this or not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor of making this not the final copy?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Did you vote nay? Okay. All right. So, other comments? Yes, Tammy.
Yeah, just in line with it taking a little longer. I would rather take a little longer and get this right than say, we need to get this done now. I'd love to get this done now, but, and I just want to add that when we had our meeting the other night with Cassandra, one of the things we talked about was how stressful it is to go through stuff in the meeting really, really fast. And that's how I feel tonight. We really had to flash through this, so I think our next meeting, it would be nice if we could just take a good look at this. You know, everybody take a good look at this between now and the next meeting and talk about this a little more slowly, because it has been very hectic and very hard to keep pace with.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Michelle, did you have something to say?
Yeah, just that we did receive 2 other letters since our last meeting from the public, and I think, although they weren't quite as detailed, I don't think we need to line item those comments, but I think it would be important to acknowledge those. And I don't know how much time we want to spend on this tonight, but if we're hoping to do a final reading at our next meeting, I don't know how much we want to put off either, and maybe be in the same situation 2 weeks from now.
Yes, Dave.
I think the two things that struck out for me were the public comment about how late the shops are open and allowing that. And the second comment was 3 shops instead of 6. Did I capture that properly? So it seems like it's worthwhile to have those 2 discussions and motions now, so that our final
so that we can
copy
get a
takes
final
into all the public comment we've had.
Okay, well,
So I'd like to make a motion that the closing of the shops be at 10 p.m. and that we allow no more than 3.
Second.
okay, discussion. Yes, Tammy.
Just to clarify, that's 3 shops that could have medical and for a total of 6? Is that?
Let's see,
Is that
that
how
is
you want that?
confusing. I would look to our attorney to,
Yeah,
basically.
that was my question too, because in theory now you could have 6 shops, or I guess up to 12 licenses, if you
Right,
will,
that's
because
what
you
it
could have dual shops. So are you saying 3, but it could be at
Locations.
6 licenses?
There would be no more than 3 stores or
Locations.
shops or establishments or whatever you call
3
them.
physical locations.
3 physical locations and a maximum of 6 licenses.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yes, Tammy.
Yeah, I kind of have a problem with that only because what if medical licenses medical license holders or applicants want to have their medical store in a private store? Are we
They can't.
saying,
They
so
can't.
then we're only saying, but there can only be 3 locations, which virtually forces people to have a medical inside of a retail.
Or not, we could end up with 2 retail and 1 medical. We could end up with 3 that were retail and medical. We could end up with 2 medical and 1 retail. It could be any combination of the above, but only 3 locations.
So what happens if we get 3 retails and a medical comes
medical.
in
Yeah.
and says, well, I'd like to open a medical store and these other stores don't have space for me? We wouldn't have a medical store, and that I'm concerned about that.
Okay. Yes, Karen.
I wonder if we need a medical store anymore since the other is legal.
I would disagree. I would say
Yeah, I
yes.
disagree with that completely.
I don't know.
Would say yes, that we do.
We do.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yes, Michelle.
Could we use Dave's suggestion, so no more than 3 physical locations and 6 licenses, with the caveat that one of the first 3 licenses is reserved for medical?
We could if the board wants to do that. Yes, Karen.
I think in the end, the board has to approve all these licenses. I mean, so if we get applications, we could make sure that there were enough of this and that. I don't know how many
So
applications.
I would have some reservations with that kind of approach, if you will. I think that as an equity standpoint, so that somebody doesn't go through the process of developing an application, you make it pretty clear from the onset in terms of what the cap might be.
I agree about the cap.
Yes, Dave.
Let's see. I only knew the illegal part of this. I did not know much about the legal part of this from back in the day. So I don't understand right now the implications of that, and maybe some of the members of the public can educate me about what the problem is if we don't have medical, as Tammy suggested, or Tammy, you could tell me. Thank you.
I don't know exactly how this works, but they do operate under different laws. They have different pricing. They have, people who have their medical marijuana cards, they pay for those, and they want that medical pod. They want the medical edibles. They want all of the things that come from a medical store. And I can assure you, there are a lot of people in this town who are traveling right now to get their medical marijuana. I met one last night or 2 days ago that shocked me that this person actually is taking medical marijuana every night to sleep. So the people are here. They want this medical store. I think we would be remiss in our duty and our public service to not have a medical store, or to not ensure that we have at least one medical store.
Yes, Nick.
I just feel that we've spent a lot of time in committees and had special committees reviewing this. We've established that 6 locations with a total of 12 licenses is what would be best. So that would be my opinion on that. And also, as far as hours, I thought that we were trying to mirror the liquor stores as for hours of operation. So, yeah, that's just my
Yes,
thoughts.
Carrie.
I agree that that's what we said. That was what was said at the last thing. The comment was also made at the last meeting. The comment came from the public that in the end, we'll probably end up with 3 stores because the others will go out of business. And I just am concerned. I would hate to see people go through the expense of trying to put in these applications and then go broke. I would rather see 3 stores do well. And now I don't know about medical and retail, but I figured now that retail is legal, then they could sell the medical stuff too. I mean, I don't know about the licensing. Maybe that's not true. And I can see why we would need both, but that's where I said in the licensing, the state has to license them first, and then it comes to the town, and maybe we just make sure that there are both kinds. I don't know, but I still think 3 is a good number.
Okay, yeah, Bill.
Well, my comment concerned the motion. The motion was 2 parts, the time and the number.
Yep.
And I would like to adjust that motion to break that up into 2.
Okay.
One, we vote on the time, and the second one is a number.
Okay.
Sure, I'll withdraw my motion and restate it. So the first motion is to limit the hours of operation to 10 p.m. rather than 12.
Okay. Discussion on that. Yes, Michelle.
I feel like we have a variety of things that we allow in town right now. We've got liquor stores that I believe are allowed to operate until midnight.
Yes.
Is that accurate? We have a draft. I don't know if this is current, but we've talked about events going until 11 p.m. So I'm wondering, when we're talking about the end time for the store, what is our actual concern? Is it noise? Is it traffic? Is it, like, what is it? And how do we regulate it in line with similar things that are happening in town so that we can be consistent?
No. Okay. Yeah, Bill.
Well, I think the concern was the potential for a store in the C1 or C2 area that is next to a residential, and the disturbance of people, you know, and even though we allow functions to go on later at night, they're limited in the number that we allow, and they're usually kept in public areas such as the park and whatnot. So I really think that 10 p.m. is a good place to start. You know, if they felt a real need, the store could come back and maybe we could modify it, but we could start out with 10 p.m.
And I would say that liquor stores are open until midnight. And liquor stores do abut residential areas. And we have yet to find a complaint from anybody about somebody going to pick up liquor at midnight and having a problem. I seriously doubt we're going to have rushes of people going down to buy pot at midnight and creating a disturbance. I think that that's a false narrative, and I think it's fear-based and isn't really based in reality. And again, we do have festivals. Bars are open until I think last call is under COVID, I'm not sure, but last call is usually around 2 p.m. Oh, I'm sorry, a.m. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes on after 10 o'clock at night, which does not generally disturb the general populace. And I think, again, voting on this out of fear, instead of looking at what we've got going on, is putting a unfair bias on it. Yes, Dave.
Just a comment, I'm voting based on my bedtime.
Well, in that case, it would be 8 o'clock, but. All right. Yes, James. Okay. Microphone.
That's better? Okay. Maybe I can offer you some clarification. The difference between medical and recreational, medical would be the equivalent to the pharmacy, and recreational would be the equivalent to a liquor store. You're there for a specific ailment with a prescription from a doctor or a caregiver, and the other guy's gonna recommend Bob Marley use it.
Yeah. Well said. Yes, Suzanne.
I think Cedar Edge voted on 3 stores total, and I'm pretty sure they specified that they wanted a medical marijuana store. I
Okay,
don't,
well, Suzanne, we're
Okay.
talking about the time right now.
okay,
We're gonna get to the
okay,
3
so
stores
let
in
me
a
tell
second.
you, the delivery is also going to be happening till midnight. And I know we're talking about lighting ordinances tonight, but what about or marijuana deliveries in your neighborhood and headlights hitting your windows and the whole like dynamic around having traffic coming in and out of neighborhoods a little bit more with the whole delivery setup? Okay, are we going to be talking about the medical versus
Yes, that
commercial
will
later?
probably be the next motion.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I just want to say I agree with Mayor Backren that we're regulating a problem we don't, but in this conversation, we're talking about regulating a problem that we don't yet have. So I would be in favor of keeping it in line with what we do for liquor stores, with the understanding that if we start getting nuisance complaints after 10 o'clock at night, we may have to adjust that.
Right.
But I think we wait until that happens because it may not.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes, Karen.
I guess just because we say they can be open until midnight, the operator doesn't have to stay open till midnight. Maybe
Yeah.
he hasn't got that much personnel and he wants to close at 10, he can.
Right. Any further discussion? From anybody? Okay, seeing none. We have a motion to require stores close at 10. All in favor? Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Got it, Amanda? Do you want to do a roll call? Do you want to do a roll call? Okay, please do.
Nay.
Trustee Knutson?
Aye.
Trustee Mack?
Nay.
Trustee Patterson?
Nay.
Okay, that motion fails. All right, so now we want to deal with the number of stores and as a subset, the kind of stores.
Okay. So, having heard this last conversation, I would make a motion that we allow 3 licenses, one of which must include medical.
Okay,
Second.
all right, discussion on this. Michelle?
To clarify, are we saying 3 total licenses or 3 physical locations and up to 6 licenses, one of which would be medical?
The latter.
What she
3 locations, up to 6 licenses, but one of the licenses must be reserved for medical. Okay, just getting clarification. Thank you.
Okay, I would ask Bo, do you see this as an equity issue? Okay. Mhm. Okay. Any other discussion? Yes, Tammy.
I guess I just have a problem with the 3 locations. And if you're saying one of them must be?
One
Medic-
license must be.
So we're essentially saying, I just find that confusing. We're essentially saying we can have 3 stores, one of them must be medical, so we're limiting it to 3 licenses.
No, you can have 3 stores.
Okay,
One of them must have a medical marijuana license. They can also have a retail marijuana license.
okay.
So of those 3 stores, at least one of them has to carry a medical marijuana license. But they can, well, if they have both licenses, yeah.
So you could, in theory, have 3 stores that have dual licensing. So you
Right.
could have 6 licenses that would be issued, with each facility having both retail and medical.
Yes. And yes, Dave.
How did Cedar Edge handle it?
Yeah, I don't know that I don't know what their ordinance says at this point in time. I'm sorry. Okay. Okay.
I can give you a little information
Sure.
about Cedar Ridge ordinance. So their ordinance, they did 3 locations, and they're doing a point system for review of applications and a medical license. There's preference to medical in their point system. So I believe that's how they determined it. I do like the approach that the town is taking. So I think that clarification, and maybe Mr. Cecil would be able to give more information, is that it used to be that a medical license and a retail license had to be in separate facilities, but the state modified that so one location can have a dual license. You can operate both facilities out of one location. So while you have 3 specific storefronts, they can hold a dual licensing where they have medical and retail. So ultimately, when the applications come before the board and you've put and established in your ordinance, which I also agree, now he can kick me under the table, on the legal standpoint, is that to identify that in your ordinance so that you have the ability to deny an application if it gets to that point, because otherwise you don't really have that ability to deny if you haven't identified it. So when they start coming before you, if your first 2 come before you and they only want retail and they meet every box and you check them off, it's done. And at that point, administratively, we're not going to bring you another application that doesn't meet the requirements for that final license location, which is medical, whether it's medical on its own or if it's another application that's coming before you that's medical and retail dual in that location.
Okay. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Cecil.
I think Dale Cecil, 1200 3rd Street. I think everything that I was thinking and considering as this was being discussed has been clarified, but the idea that the 3 locations and 6 licenses certainly appears to be about what the market could stand in this town. Also understanding that a medical license on its own, a standalone medical license, first of all, I can't imagine anybody would ever apply for it, number one. And number 2, if they did and were able to open up a business, they couldn't make it. Regardless of what, how many people say, well, that would be great, we'd really love to have that. Any business success or failure is based on revenue. And early revenue projections are there just wouldn't be enough business for a standalone medical. It would have to be co-located and co-owned by the same retail operator. Otherwise, it just wouldn't happen. It's a nice idea, but any place where medical and recreational or retail coexist, they typically are co-located or owned by the same companies. So.
Thank you. All right, any further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion. Oh, sorry, Suzanne?
I was just wondering, when the renewals come around, what if one of the retail stores decides to drop the medical and we're in the situation of having 3 locations with no medical? I don't know if I'm trying to look too far ahead here. So that's a question. And then what about dropping the distance requirement if you only have 3 stores? I know there was a concern about having too much density, but perhaps it's good to have like a little bit more in one area than really spreading it out around town where you do impact neighborhoods a little bit more, because R2 is all backing up to dwelling houses, and I think would keep it out. And that being said, when you think about it, you know, medical is probably the most valuable type of marijuana, just in a societal sense, because it's going for something beneficial. But I'd like to point out, I heard on CPR that at this point, 1 to 2% of the state's carbon emissions are coming from the grow houses now, and they've taken the place of coal. So for all you people who are environmentally oriented, thinking that we're going to capitalize off of this is really a bad thing. It's very hypocritical if we're concerned about fracking and greenhouse gases in general. Marijuana is not a good thing. Thanks.
Thank you, Suzanne. All right. Last chance to comment. Okay, we have a motion on the table that we allow 3 locations with 6 licenses, one of those licenses needing to be a medical license. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Anything else on marijuana? Okay, we got 2 more. Michelle.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the definition that we have for a block and for spot zoning. I still find that unclear, so I was wondering if we could just talk through what is meant by that and maybe get a little more specific in the language.
Okay, so I'm happy to add to those definitions if the board feels that they need a little bit more, but the definition that was used for a block is, well, let me see if I can actually, I can't look at it on my computer while I'm sharing.
Oh.
So let me find it here. Page 3. Okay. Well, it's just the commercial block, so it's the definition. Commercial block, sorry, in the red, is the distance from one street to another in a town that is built approximately to a grid pattern. So a block would be, so let me enlarge this a little bit. So if we're looking at Grand Avenue, a block would be from 3rd Street to 2nd Street. Both sides of the street, any property on this is 1 block. So like here, this from 1st to 2nd of Grand, this is the 100 block of Grand Avenue. 2nd to 3rd, this is the 200 block of Grand Avenue, 300 block. And then the numbering goes the same when you're moving up the numbered streets. Those also are numbered blocks. So that's what that definition is, when it's from one street to the next street.
Okay, do you mind if I point at the map to show what?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I know I'm moving my mouse, but you can't really see it up
dear.
there.
Yeah.
See if I can. So if we're saying this is a single block,
Yes,
but then this is also a single block.
yes.
So are we saying we could potentially have a store here and a store here because one is on the Grand block and one is on the 2nd block?
No, there could be, so what you're pointing at right there, let me zoom in even more here. You could have a location here, 19 and 20. And, you know, well, and actually 19 and 20 is that's one property. I know our lot lines are interesting on this map. We continue to try to figure out a way to incorporate a couple of maps to make this better. But say this 20 is one storefront, 20 could have a location, one across could have a location, but you couldn't have a location side by side because this is a Grand Avenue address, these are Grand Avenue addresses. So you could have one on this corner and one on this corner. You could only have one from here all the way up to 2nd Street. There could only be one. If one opened on the west side, you wouldn't have one open on the east side because you already have one on this block. So I don't know if that's helping, but.
That is helpful, thank you.
Okay. And then as far as spot zoning, that is like this location right here, where you have what used to be the medical clinic, and now still has some holistic medical, there's massage therapy, they offer a lot of different services there, but they are zoned, a spot zone commercial. It would not be staff's recommendation that we allow a medical or retail marijuana license in an area like this that's a spot zone because that is completely surrounded by residential. It's zoned through a variance. which means if it was ever to stop its current commercial use for 12 consecutive months, it would revert back to residential. It would not retain its commercial zoning. So a difference, oops, clicked the wrong thing. A different example of spot zoning would be over here. So now you're on Grand, which is, this does typically is a mixed use. And while these locations are zoned commercial, this is an office. It used to be a legal office. And this down here is actually zoned and has been zoned commercial, but is only a residential use. There is no commercial use in that location at all, nor is there any intention that there would continue to be. They may actually look at zoning to residential to change their rates. So again, I would not suggest, staff would not suggest that we allow properties like these that are spot zoned, which means they're completely surrounded by a different zone, oh, the word just went. Zone. I mean, they're zoned differently, but they're completely surrounded, by a different district. So that would be our recommendation.
Okay, so I know this may seem really nitpicky, but this goes back to Trustee Bear's comment of trying to be as clear as we can in this language so a decade from now people know what we mean. So if you look at the spot zoning up on Grand, the 17 and 18, on our map, that looks like two separate parcels. How would we know that?
Everything I just said now is not on the recording. The maps were provided by two different companies, one through GIS, one through a surveyor, and we are working with them to combine the two so that we have a zoning map that accurately identifies the parcels as they exist, because more than one lot can create a parcel.
Okay, I appreciate that. I would like to update I would like to see the language updated in that definition to specify that spot zoning is a single parcel completely surrounded by a different zone, just to make that super clear. And if, I assume we have to make an update to our zoning code related to this to include this use as part of zoning at some point. Is that accurate?
It's actually already defined in there. We allow retail stores and medical stores in C1 and C2 currently, and that's what these shops would be.
Okay, thank you. So is there any way that we could add a map to that section? I know there are some sections of our code more typically in the building area, but if we could add a map with like a little example of this is a block, so that 10 years from now, it's super clear how the board intended to define that. Thank you.
Okay, Tammy.
Okay, page 77, 6-4-90 lists a fire permit, and I don't believe we have fire permits. So I'd like to see fires. I would move that we strike fire from that section. I think it would just be confusing. People would be coming in and asking about a fire permit, and we don't have them. So just to simplify it for the people looking at the ordinance and figuring out the process.
Yeah, that would be fine. Because we do reference previously that they have to work with the fire protection district with respect to making sure, and that would be with respect to any sort of fire hazard. But again, yeah, fire permit looks like more like wood burning permit, right? So yeah, I think that yeah.
That's a motion.
Make a motion, Tammy.
Oh, I thought I did. I move that we strike fire, the word fire, from the from 6-40-90, 6-4-90G. Leave in the word permit, though, obviously.
Okay,
Second.
do I have a second? More discussion? Yes, Suzanne.
I'm curious what our relationship is with a fire protection district. Are they a volunteer organization, or is there some sort of an MOU that they're going to come and inspect marijuana stores for us? It's not part of the town government.
A volunteer organization.
And are they on board with this? Are committing their resources to inspect?
They have participated when they have been requested with inspections and opinions, yes.
Okay, and why is the marijuana store any more of a fire hazard than any other retail store? No, they're not growing, so there's no light issue, is there?
I think that was a facetious comment.
Okay. Isn't the building inspector really, if there's premises changes or modifications, that falls under, if there's electrical work, the state electrical inspector comes and inspects, and that would cover fire issues, but I wasn't sure why. Are we just trying to sound tough, or is there any kind of rationale behind that?
No, some communities have a fire marshal that does inspections. The town of Paonia does not.
Okay.
So no, I don't think it was an intention to state that we're going to do something that we're not, but.
I think it was maybe a boilerplate thing. I don't know
It
from
is.
somewhere else, and I don't know if it applies to us. I'll let you think about that.
Okay,
Thanks.
thank you. All right, any further discussion on the dropping of fire? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Anything else on marijuana? Yes. Okay, please. Very good. And state
Ryan
your name.
Jacobs, 40,000 Cedar.
Thank you.
And we kind of flew through advertising, and I'm unclear about what kind of advertising is permitted. Specifically, the bright green LED lights that you see so common for marijuana facilities. Is that permitted in this town or not? And who has the superiority on that? Is it the state or what?
I believe it is the town code that supersedes. That is the first code that you would operate under. So whatever the town code says about lighting also goes for marijuana.
So, so does anybody know right off the bat, are the bright green LED green crosses, is that permitted or not?
LED lights identifying your business are permitted. They're just not allowed to move. So when you see lights that have chasers or blinking, things like that, that technically is not permitted under the town's municipal code.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Suzanne.
To this, there's a little bit of an issue with the town sign code because it used to be part of the land development regulations. And it got taken out of that section and it was stuck into the building code. But technically, when you're telling people what they can and can't do with their property, you need the due process that's afforded to people in those zoning or development regulations, and we do not have them right now. So
and someday we will
yeah.
look at that. And
Okay.
yes, your objection has been noted, Suzanne,
Okay, thank
on several
you.
occasions. Thank
okay,
you.
I know, but it keeps coming up, popping up in little
I know you
things
keep
like
you
this.
keep nudging us and saying you need to do this.
Okay, well, thank you. Maybe when we start doing the comprehensive plan again, we can look into that. It's all
Okay.
part of it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, anything else? All right, I think we're done with marijuana. Let us move on to the proposed ordinance language regarding outdoor lighting regulations.
Mayor, can we have a 5-minute break?
Yes, we can, okay. If I say a 5-minute break, I will gavel us back here in 5 minutes. So if you want more than 5 minutes, you need to say so now. All right, 5 minute it is. We are adjourned for 5. Oh, God, I know.
2.5 hours sitting with a long time.
It is long. Wow, we haven't had one of those in a long time. It was good. I mean, it was really good. We
That's how
covered
you
a lot
put
of
all the
stuff.
issues to bed.
Yep. Yep, and hopefully they are put to bed this time.
Not in our 5 minutes, but sometime I'm gonna ask you, have you heard any more about the affordable housing design?
No, I've been waiting to hear on the water moratorium. We basically left it with him, but we weren't gonna do anything until that. But in my calls on the building inspection, I have 2 more people who are interested in being part of it. I know, it's like those calls were really, really, really loud.
One boy, 7, so I'm actually yeah, he just started soccer, he's doing well. Finishing up the first grade. This is Memorial Day. So goes fast.
Are you still in Ridgewood?
Still in Ridgewood, yeah.
That's gonna be home.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. It's the switch firms. Just kind of been able to get more entrenched with my office there. I love it. Being able to kind of walk into the boss and walk to work and pretty ideal.
So your office is in town?
Yep. Yep. Just on Sherman or Main there, there's that Tacos Del Mar. If you're coming through, you see Tacos Del Mar. Stop in. I'm on the 2nd floor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't get that way often, but maybe.
Yeah. There you go.
It's good that you've been through.
Oh, it's been, yeah, it's good. I mean, so it's just something in the ether. Just a lot of craziness as we know, but I think it will calm down this summer.
Let's hope so.
Hope so. Either calm down or explode. So.
Yeah, we will all explode in that case.
I think that the whole western slope thing is growing.
We're exploding right
So,
now.
I mean, we work with a couple of title companies, and they are full with closings. They can do basically 7 a day. They're booked up through.
Okay.
It's been like that, and they're booked up through next year.
Yep. All right, I call this meeting back to order.
5 minutes on the dot.
Damn, I'm trying, Bill. Okay, next up on the agenda is, all right, shh, quiet. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is proposed ordinance language regarding outdoor lighting regulations. Okay. Yes, Corinne.
Mayor, in light of the number of things that are still on the agenda and the fact that we've added a new item before the new business item, if those in attendance that came tonight to talk for the first read about the Board of Appeals wouldn't object, I would respectfully request the board consider tabling the first read of the Board of Appeals ordinance to the next meeting, at which time I would put it near the beginning of the meeting so that those in attendance would have an opportunity to fully give their information to a bright-eyed and bushy-tailed staff and board. I know there's a few people that are here specifically for that Board of Appeals ordinance, and I would ask respectfully if they had any objection to us tabling the initial read and first discussion until the beginning of the next meeting, so that you don't have to stay through 3 more items. I'm really gonna,
Okay. All right, well, would the board like to do that? Okay, somebody make a motion.
I'd like to move that we push the Board of Appeals back to the next meeting.
Okay, a second? All right, any discussion? All right, all in favor? Oh, James. Nope, you need to talk into the microphone.
You need a shout collar. Because it's directly related, in your mayor's report, you have the report on your
Yes.
survey. Could we also include that in the next discussion?
That we can do, absolutely,
Okay.
because it's going to be very late before we ever get to
Yeah,
that.
that'd be great.
Okay, can do.
And we can do that? Guess I should vote?
Yeah, since it's not actually
Okay.
part of the agenda, we can put that wherever we want.
Okay,
And we
thank
can
you.
make it an agenda item.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank-
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Thank you for sticking it out as long as you did. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. We are still doing the outdoor lighting. All right. So we have before us. All right, do we have anybody who would like to say anything about this prior to opening it up for board discussion? Aaron, did you want to say anything?
Aaron Watson, and I'm with Dark Skies Paonia. So just an update. We met Dave, Trustee Knutson, Corinne, and I met and went over the notes that Corinne had on the last revision. And so we added a few things, mainly in the exemptions section, concerning the flagpoles and also the holiday lights. So that has been revised. And then we've added towards the end the lighting decision group wording for the variances to allow the variances. So those are the main points we've made. I wanted to also mention Trustee Pattison. You did mention a comment last time about the what's the wording? Achieved, not being achieved. And I did look at that. I didn't make a revision this time, but it does look like that could just be removed, that one section, and it would be fine. Then otherwise, I just wanted to add that I sent this copy of the draft, the latest that's on the website, to the International Dark Skies Association because they need to approve it, those changes that we've made. And they came back saying that and from what we have, we need to do some more work on those exemptions. They really want to limit unshielded light as much as possible, and so those exemptions are going to allow unshielded light. So what they're asking is that we put some type of limit on how much unshielded light we allow. And that could be like a lumen per net acre, that we have on the residential and mixed-use zones. So there's lumens per net, total lumens per net acre, and what we would need to add is unshielded lumens per net acre. So I just wanted to make sure we know that they're requesting we add that in there. And I think that's all I have for as far as updates and what we've done so far.
Okay, thank you. Do we have questions for Aaron from the board? Don't run away yet. Yes, Dave.
I'd like to get a clear number on that so we can actually decide on the wording for lumens per acre. So did they make a suggestion to us about what that needs to be? And I think we need to, I mean, we already have the football stadium field lights, those kind of things. What are they talking about, like flagpoles and stuff like that?
Yeah, the flagpoles, holiday lights, also signs,
Okay.
illuminated like neon signs and stuff like, and other signs, yeah.
Well, we may need to include the whole town if we're going to do the Block the Ferguson ceremony.
Oh my God. Unless we put a lumen limit on that sucker.
There's just no way.
And so from IDA, they didn't not give direct recommendation on what the lumen would be, so that's up to us to determine. There is some wording in a policy playbook that I looked at, and what they do is they zone the lighting out into different zones. So there's like a lighting zone 0, which is really no additional unshielded lighting. Then they'll have a lighting zone 1 where there's up to like 2,000 lumens can be unshielded. And then I think in the multi-unit, not the multi-unit, the multi-use or industrial, they allow up to, I believe it's 5,000 lumens per net acre of unshielded light from those exemptions. So just to give you a kind of ballpark estimate of what it would look like. I don't know offhand how much lumens like a holiday light display, for example, would put off, or like, you know, the cross on the top of the hill. I'm not sure what that would be, but maybe we'd want to look at that to determine, you know, what our limits would be for the town.
Okay. Other comments, suggestions, discussion items? Yes, Michelle.
There's a section on packet page 97 that specifies the allowed illuminated surface area of an individual sign, which it listed as 200 square feet, and I think that's quite a bit larger than we even allow for signage in town. So I don't know if we want to, I don't know if that's going to be confusing. When our signage maximum is something like 50 or 75 square feet, to say we're allowing it to be illuminated up to 200 square feet just doesn't match our existing code.
Thank you. Or it could just be according to town code or in alignment with town code. Okay, anyone else? Yeah, Michelle.
Yeah, just one more. There's a specific application fee listed here, and I think we would list that there would be an application fee subject to board resolution instead. Change the language so that the actual dollar amount isn't in the ordinance.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, well, I have a couple of comments. One, and it's probably just my ignorance and not understanding, but under number 5, 6.5, 6-5-4, the general provisions, and it talks under 5 about, you know, like 25,000 lumens per acre. And I was trying to figure this out as to what that actually means on the ground. And I was wondering if you could put in something like, I did the math, and it would be 16.6 fixtures if each fixture was not allowed to be more than 1,500 lumens, or was 1,500 lumens. So either as an appendix or some further clarification in this, so somebody who's reading the ordinance can say, I've got the lot this big, I can put in these many shielded fixtures or whatever.
Yeah, I think we can add that in there, yeah.
Okay. And then the other one on lighting curfews, B, town buildings turned off 1 hour after the close of business. Well, I don't know if this would be considered business or not, but I think we need to include something about evening meetings, or if the town hall was being used for a festival or a concert or something, that would be acceptable.
Madam Mayor, what if we just said 1 hour after the close of approved activities?
Yeah, that might work. That might work quite well.
Okay.
And then under, let's see if I get the right section here. Oh, it's still under B, under that same heading. The following exempt from the provisions of subsection A, number E, where it sets times as no later at 10:30 p.m. standard time and 11:30 p.m. daylight savings time. I don't know that that's always practicable. Maybe making both of those midnight or something like that. For example, if there's late night caroling or something like that that's going on, the people are carrying lights, or there's something going on in the park, that they could have that without having to get some kind of exemption for that, or write in a clause where they could get a variance or an exception with town board approval or the lighting group approval.
Yeah, I think I would suggest the variance would be better.
And that would be fine.
Okay.
Just as long as we can make exceptions.
Okay. Great.
And then under B again, number 5, holiday lights. And it says displayed. Is it displayed or turned on? Because you can have your lights up on your house all year round and only turn them on at Christmas time. So maybe illuminated versus displayed.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And those are my comments. Okay, any other comments? Okay, so I'm assuming we will get another rewrite and come back again?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, thank you, Aaron, and everybody on the Dark Skies Committee for putting all the work into this that you have. It is greatly appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on, we are up to Mr. Knudsen. Dave, tell us about your proposed testimony.
Okay, let me pull this up.
Oh, wait, I skipped a thing. I'm sorry, you're not up yet. We're doing the modification of board meeting schedule. I'm sorry. I'm not paying attention to my agenda. All right. So again, this has been proposed that we move to a 3-week schedule on a temporary basis just to see what it's like. Give it a shot, see what it's trying out. And it was included in the packet, the dates, but I actually took and put it on a calendar so that I could understand, because I'm a visual person. And it looks like we're still going to have 2 meetings a month if we were to run this through the end of the year. We are still going to have 2 meetings a month in June, in August, in November, and December. And that we would only have 1 meeting a month in May, July, September, and October. So that we really are still, by and large, doing 2 meetings a month. And it doesn't seem like it's a huge reduction in what we're doing. And it's just like, in my opinion, it gives the staff definitely more time to put things together, gives us more time to look at things, to consider things, to have public input, all the rest of that. Now, we will have to see what happens if we have too much on our agendas and we just can't get through it. But a personal opinion, and that's all I'm putting forward here, is that I think we should try it, at least try it. There's no harm in trying something and then finding out you were wrong and going back to it. But I definitely welcome input from the rest of the staff, or the board. Yes, Bill.
I had a comment.
Sure.
I'm generally against this. I think that this grew out of frustration with the amount of public input that we were getting, and the time it took. And secondly, you know, in this second paragraph, it says, so the board can move items at a rapid pace, and I think a rapid pace equals less public involvement, and I don't see how a board can deliberate on an issue or it cannot communicate during a 3-week period. We're not supposed to be communicating other than in the committees, and so I would be voting against this.
Okay. Yes, correct.
I just want to provide some clarification. So what you're talking about is the information I provided on the agenda summary, and that the point of what I was stating in that was not that there is an expectation that the board, that's what we want the board to do. That's what we feel, I feel, this is my opinion from the staff level, is that, that the staff produces a lot of work. It's a large volume of work. It's not an issue about whether or not we can. We have been and will continue to do so if the board chooses not to modify or try the modification. But what we want also is to be able to provide well thought out, well vetted documents that don't have as many errors and small mistakes in them as they do when we're trying to push it out as fast as we can in the amount of time that we have to do that. And we don't want the board to have to feel that they have to review and move at a rapid pace. I don't have any problem with slowing down a little bit the review process and having things take a little bit longer. And so that really was what I was trying to get across in the brief summary, was that, you know, exactly what I had stated was that I do understand that there's concern, but I do think also that from the community and the board level, many times it's been said that hey, just because we've been doing it this way all this time doesn't mean that's working, doesn't mean we should keep doing it. It was one of the recommendations that was made at that work session, was that we do need to challenge the status quo and be open to trying. And I don't believe that that this comes from community input. I don't have any problem with community input from the staff level. And again, I'm only speaking from that position. It really is to there's a lot of large things that we are working on day in and day out, and having an opportunity to schedule and work on those things in a little bit more of a diligent fashion, instead of prepping an agenda, having an agenda meeting, prepping a packet in less than 72 hours to get that packet out, having that meeting, and then less than 5 business days later turning around and starting that process over, does not give staff what I consider to be an adequate amount of time to work on the projects that we need to be working on, the day-to-day projects, as well as the additional projects that we're trying to work on, and provide good, well-vetted information to the board.
Yes, Bill.
Well, one way to help with that would be to lighten the agenda. And you know, the amount of stuff that we have on our agenda, I don't know how you're going to get through it in one meeting every 3 weeks myself. So, you know, the way to do what you've asked for is just to lighten the load in the agenda. For instance, tonight, the marijuana ordinance took approximately 2 hours. You know, we should have only had 2 issues in that case on the agenda to get through tonight to occupy our 3-hour time. And then secondly, on an unrelated topic to the 3-week thing, we are asked to approve expenditures every 2 weeks, and I know that the thought would be, well, we'd sign checks ahead of time and get bills paid, but I don't know how you can pay the bills without having approval from the board first.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Other comments? Yes, Nick.
How many public comments have we had on changing 2 or 3 weeks?
Suzanne spoke up about it. I don't think that we've had anybody
Right,
else.
so we've had one?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Dave.
I've worked as a public official for over 10 years of my career, part of it serving appointed boards and part of it half of it serving elected officials. And I know what the thrash is, trying to get ready for public meetings. And I have been listening closely to the staff and the attorney and other people that are our direct reports about what it takes to serve that kind of schedule as far as thoughtfulness and discernment and trying to get it together. What happens is, because of the mistakes that we see, things get moved to agenda after agenda after agenda instead of being well thought out, dealt with once, maybe twice, but instead it gets dealt with 3 times, 5 times. It keeps getting continued because we haven't been able to put enough thought into it. I really think it's our job as a board to try and set priorities for the staff. So if there's too much on the agenda, we're not doing a very good job in setting priorities. And if there's too much thrash for the staff, we're not setting priorities well. I think it's worth a try to just see how it goes, so we have at least 1 month where there's 2 meetings, which we always have, and another month where there's possibly 1, so we can look back and say, how did this pilot work? The other thing is, many times we approve things in advance. We've told, because of holidays, the finance committee has told, go ahead. We have so many checks and balances. Just today, I was talking to our finance director about, well, how does she know that these credit card charges and things, how much confidence can we have that these are actual expenditures that we need to make? And the checks and balances internally are really, really strong. So I think the fact that we have the committee, we have the treasurer, we have the finance director, we have the, on the expenditures end, I don't see it as a problem to come back in. But anyway, that's my 2 cents. I'm in favor of at least trying this for a couple months and see how it goes and see if that increases the quality of the reports we get and the quality of our decision making.
Thank you, Dave. Yes, Karen.
And we're talking about the staff and the work of the staff, but on this board particularly, as opposed to the last board before the election, the committees are doing so much more work. The board members, it gives them 3 weeks to get their reports in instead of 2, trying to meet, off-site someplace. And the work that they produce is great, but it gives them a little more time too. And, it's not like we're trying to get out of work. We'll still sign the same amount of checks. We'll still sign this, but it just will seem to be a little more efficient.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, Tammy.
So when I first heard this, I thought, I really bristled at this. I didn't like the idea for many other reasons Trustee Bear mentioned, and for other reasons, and this is just the way it's been done. But the more I got to think about it, the more I thought, every 3, 4, 5 months, along comes 2 meetings where they're 3 weeks apart. And we just had one of those 3-week breaks, which it really felt like a break. I serve on 2 committees in the tree board in addition to this board. And it's a lot of work, and we all put in a lot of work. I really think that giving this a try, even if it's just maybe through August or through September, I think giving it a try and seeing how it goes, seeing how the public reacts, seeing if we really do have better meetings and we're better prepared is worth a shot, because sometimes this is really, really exhausting. So, and I don't mind being exhausted, and I don't mind the work, but it's like we had tonight, we had to rush through so much. To just be able to sit in a meeting and stop and contemplate, and like we talked about, maybe, people give everybody a chance to say, here's what I think. And I just think it's an opportunity for us to just slow down a little in this fast-paced world and just give it a try.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. Michelle?
Yeah, so I'm with Trustee Bear on this. I'm not opposed to trying different arrangements, and I don't think that our current schedule is necessarily the only or best way to do it. I've put up a proposal to change it in the past. At the same time, I don't see how reducing the number of meetings is going to be beneficial for what happened tonight. I think it would be just the opposite. We've had to cut an item out of our agenda this evening because of how much time we needed. And reducing the number of meetings in a month means that we're going to be cutting down even more. So ultimately, we're going to be getting a lot less done. When we were working with Cassandra in our work session, she talked about the need for board members to have time for introspection, and not just board members, the public as well, time for introspection, time for dialogue. And I agree that we need to find a way to do that, which is why I'm really in favor of us having that follow-up work session with Cassandra so she can guide us through some of that, because I think that those issues are tied in pretty tightly to how we conduct our meetings. Whether there's more we could do online if it's completely open to the public, thereby allowing some dialogue to happen in advance. And I feel like that would go a lot farther to reduce our workload at the meeting. So for example, with Ms. Smith's comments on the marijuana ordinance, if we could have been emailing with that all publicly on the website in advance of tonight's meeting, we might have.
No.
Okay. Even if it's on the website? Okay. Okay. I would like to review with you what another town in Colorado is doing, just to, maybe they're operating illegally, but.
Right. And the other thing is too, the people who do not have access to internet then get completely cut out of the discussion. And that is a big issue as well.
Okay, fair enough. So even without that idea, I think Cassandra might have suggestions for us that could get us to a better option than what we're coming up with on our own. And I don't like the idea of changing it tonight, and then 3 weeks from now when we have that work session with her saying, oh no, let's change it again. I think in the spirit of moving more slowly and taking our time, I would wait until after that work session to institute any change, because I think what she may have to say to us about making this a better solution for not just the board or not just staff or the public, but all of us, might play into the schedule too.
Right. Mick.
Okay, well.
Oh my goodness, we need to, wait, take and have a motion to extend the meeting. We are over time right now.
I move that we extend the meeting.
By, let's say.
15 minutes, is
Okay.
that enough?
I think so. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. I'm glad it off. Oh, your mic.
Sorry. I'm in favor of trying the 3 weeks. And I guess I go back to, the marijuana ordinance, where everyone thinks we're rushing through it, but it's been through committees, special committees. It's been read, it's gone to the state. And, maybe sometimes we're taking too much time to do these things. So, I don't know. So I think we could move it to 3 weeks. If we have something that's needs a meeting, we can schedule a special meeting for it. It's not a big deal. We've done it before. So anyway, I'd be in favor of it.
Okay. Well, would somebody like to make a motion on this?
I had my own comments.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go, Bo.
So, two things. One is, I feel like we could potentially have the regular May meeting schedule of the second and fourth Tuesday, because a couple of things that I've heard is the desire to kind of revisit with Cassandra, and you could kind of hit upon this topic, and then potentially pick it up in June, if you will, with respect to the 3 meeting schedule. Personally, I'm kind of biased to that calendar that's included, just because for whatever reason, I felt like it did a good job of not falling on weeks of major holidays, if you will. So I would suggest if you do follow if it is a desire to take up that every 3-week meeting schedule, that you pick it up on June 8th, if you will, just in terms of, missing Labor Day, Memorial Day, 4th of July, things of just where weeks where people are traditionally out. The other avenue or aspect is just kind of from my perspective, what I anticipate is, so for the meeting that we have scheduled for the 27th, Corinne and the mayor and I, we're going to have an agenda meeting to kind of set the agenda and go over the discussion. In all likelihood, the 21st or the 22nd, and then that really gives staff the 22nd and the 23rd to get the packet together, which is 2 days. And so under this theory of the 3-week schedule, if we had the meeting instead of the 27th but the 4th, what I would anticipate is that we would still have that agenda meeting on the 21st, but then we would have up until the 28th in terms of being able to put that packet together. So it gives you more of like a week-long kind of turnaround, if you will. So that's one of the perspectives where we're coming from in terms of trying to build a little bit better of a packet, if you will.
Thank you, Bill. All right. Would someone like to make a motion? Yes, Tammy.
I move that we move this to the next, right, first. I do want to make a motion. When
Yeah.
is our next meeting with Cassandra? When is our next
I
session?
believe it's the 4th of May.
The 4th of May. I would move that we table this until the first meeting in May in order to have a chance to talk this over in a different setting.
Okay, do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? Yes, Thomas.
I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, so take what I say here with a grain of salt. But if productivity is an issue, you may want to revisit your procedures and your management rather than asking for less work. I see a lot of content in the agenda that could be removed. I think a lot of it's superfluous, and that might save some time. I think that it's extremely hypocritical for you, Mary, to this point say, what's the harm in trying a different idea when 2 months ago you viciously shot down Michelle's idea without any consideration. And I would ask that before any changes actually are implemented, you find a way to measure how much time is being spent, the quality of the work, the quantity of the work that's being done on meetings, and find out how much whatever change might be implemented is actually affected. I agree that I think that reducing the number of meetings is not going to reduce the content of the meetings, and so what you're going to end up with is something that's 25% longer. Basically, the same stuff has to happen, you know. You're just going to have to kind of rush through it even faster, which may also create more errors in the future. Yeah, those are my thoughts on this matter.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Suzanne.
I see this as a great way of loading the agenda so full, trying to get issues done that you have had so much time in between that you're going to just have to, it's going to make an excuse to start limiting the public comment even more. All of a sudden you'll have a bona fide reason to just allow 1 minute per everybody and 1 comment each. And that's the next place the cuts are going to have to come from. so I'm against this. I'm wondering, why can't you vote every now and then to say, let's cancel the meeting for next week. It looks like we're really on top of things and we want to give everybody a break. Let's just give everybody a little bonus here. We know that there's going to be a lot of vacations and people need some time off. So why not gauge it as kind of a bonus, as a reward for doing a good job, getting the agenda streamlined, getting, you know, so it's like more play it by ear instead of making a definite decision. I think, I'll just look at tonight. There was a request to be put on the agenda at the last minute because a trustee needed to do something. We're going to be seeing this. You've got people who are going to want their marijuana licenses approved, people who want liquor licenses or park events licenses approved, and they're going to have to wait 3 weeks now. I think that could be problematic. It's not a very regular type of a meeting. When people ask me when the meetings are, I say it's the 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month. That's very predictable and regular. And having this confusing, like every 3 weeks, is a little, it's hard for the public. So these meetings are really about the public's ability to watch you perform, to watch you interact. When we talked about shifting the work to the committees, I know the committees do an immense amount of work, and I know it's it's important for this town, but technically SRSA frowns on committees. They don't like to see this model. I think it's going to be easier for trustees to drift into kind of directing things behind the scenes and cutting out the public. I know some of you open committee meetings, but for average people who work and come home, who are off at 5 o'clock and then have to drive back from Delta to get home in the evening, at 10 o'clock, a 1 o'clock committee meeting is difficult. I mean, I'm lucky, you know, we're lucky when we can attend them, but it's not something to be relied on. A regular meeting in the evening is probably the most accessible to the public. So I do believe that you really need to look at limiting your agenda a little bit. As far as errors, I've been looking back at some of our, even the shift that happened with the zoning codes back in 2017, and I looked up a statutory reference in one of these codes that was shifting to the building code. It's completely nonsensical, and this has to do with the quality of staff work. You know, it's the quality of people you hire. And when statutes are being misquoted, it's not a matter of time, it's a matter of bad habits and maybe not the best workers that we have. So I think there are some other elements in this that I believe that we need to look at a little bit more carefully, and just instead of just saying the meetings are too long. I understand, I like the 3 weeks. You know, it's nice every now and then, although it was ruined because there was a work session in there, so it wasn't really 3 weeks. But, you know, maybe do the little break. You know, you guys have been doing great. Our agenda is unloaded. We've really got this, let's take next one off or something. Or, you know, maybe you can fudge it that way. And then you didn't consider at all the one work session and one voting session. Although I think you could do a small voting session at the end of the work session. I don't know how you'd notice it for the disbursements. But, you know, if you make us wait 3 weeks between meetings, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And everybody who deserves a check should have to wait 3 weeks too. It's not fair to cut the public out, but think you're going to do business as usual for the convenience of I don't think this is something that's being thought of as convenient for the public. It's more for the staff. But when you get elected, it's the public that elects you to represent them. You're not in here to lobby for the staff. So I don't want you to lose focus of the fact that the public is probably the most important part of your jobs. Thank you.
Okay, we're at 9:44. Our 15 minutes is about up. We really do need to get to Dave's agenda. So can we get another motion for another 15 minutes?
I move that we extend the meeting for another 15 minutes.
Okay, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that carries. All right, we have a motion. Did we get a second on that motion? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor to, let's reiterate that we will bring this up again on the 11th after our meeting with Cassandra. Correct? Yes. Yes, I think that's what I was just trying to say. Yeah, I was trying to make sure that everybody knew what the motion was. Okay. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right. Okay. We have one nay. That moves on. All right. Dave, finally.
Okay, I got a request to testify to the,
Yes.
thanks for that check. Okay, there is a Senate bill about reducing greenhouse gases and increasing environmental justice that's coming to the Senate Hearing Committee next week. And so the request was to testify about that. I have a handout here that I'd like to give to everyone. It's only one page, so I'd like to give you a little bit of time to skim it.
So my question, Dave, is will you be testifying on behalf of this bill in support of this bill?
You have a copy of your statements that you intend to make?
Basically, I was going to keep it really short, Trustee Bear. I was going to say that these are the things that I really support, and those are mostly in bold. I'm going to make short comments about each one of the bold statements and leave it at that. It's going to be like a 3 to 5 minute testimony. The main question I have for the trustees is whether I am introducing myself as an individual trustee testifying with my own opinion, or if I'm testifying based on the majority of the council. So that's what I wanted to clear up. And I didn't want confusion about, you know, what do I represent? I feel strongly about this, and I'd like to talk. Senator Donovan, who is our senator, sits on this committee. So that's why they asked me to testify, because I'm one of her constituents. So that's the question for the board, is whether you want me to preface my remarks by saying I am testifying today as a elected official for the town of Paonia, but I represent my own viewpoint, not the town's, or whether I can say I represent the viewpoint of the council. That's what I wanted to come in with. And I'm trying to respect the way we look at how we write letters, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I didn't want to even tell the person that emailed me whether I would or would not until I could talk to you.
Okay. Well, would someone like to make a motion on that?
Well, Mayor, I
Yeah.
just have one comment on that. In the past 5 years plus that I've been on this council, any letters that we sent to government agencies were already brought before the council and approved. I certainly don't have any objections if you want to testify as an individual. But when you represent the town, I believe that you need to bring whatever statements that you're going to make forward for approval of the town. To go off and make your statement up there and say that you represent the town, but making a statement that we may or may not support, I think is wrong. I don't know if it's even legal.
Well,
Tonight. with
right,
that-
exactly.
yeah,
I was
that's what he'd be asking for, would be
Right.
that authority.
So we
Well,
can
then I
voice-
move that to whatever statement you want to make, you make as a individual, not as a representing the board.
Would I get a second? Do I get a second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, further discussion? Yes, Michelle.
I just want to explain why I'm seconding that. Reading this summary, I feel very strongly that I would support this and I would have no problem being represented by your statement. At the same time, having not seen it before tonight, I'm looking at the bill right now. It's 22 pages long. I don't know what else is in it. And as Trustee Bear said, having not seen the actual statement, I'm reluctant to have it be a board statement without being something that we've seen in full. Thanks.
Yes, Justina.
I'm wondering if Trustee Knudsen knows when, if there's a public comment period on this, and if so, when it ends. That way we could at least, I agree with Trustee Bear, but that way we could at least comment ourselves, you know, and we could say, I am a trustee commenting on myself, by myself, or for myself. Because I am uncomfortable with not having read all of this and not knowing exactly what you're going to say. Not that I would disagree with you personally, but I think that there would be other people who might.
Okay. Any other discussion? Thoughts? Yes, Dave.
In discussions with the person who asked me to testify, she said, I know you probably don't have time to read the 22-page bill. And I said, yes, I do not have time to read the 22-page bill. She said, what we need to discuss is to highlight these are the things you support, which are meeting climate goals, protecting public health, looking to the future and building back better, setting clear guidelines for the Air Quality Control Commission to adopt regulations to meet each sector-specific goal, ensuring electric providers file timely and meaningful emission reduction plans, supporting more opportunities for community engagement and empowerment, and creating additional funding by closing a loophole that currently lets polluters off the hook. Those are the portions of the bill I would like to see you honor and keep in. That's my testimony. So what I said is the bold parts of this, and say I'd like to make sure that the bill honors those concepts. And that's the end. So in essence, you have my testimony in front of you.
Well, as it sits tonight, you don't know what questions are going to be asked. Therefore, I think that I'm uncomfortable with it.
Okay, I understand that.
Any other comments from the board? Okay, comments from the public? Yes, Dave.
Page Smith, 215 Delta, and I just wanted to follow up on Trustee Mack's question, and I've done a lot of work with the legislature in Wyoming, and I just want to point out that every one of us, if you're interested for or against a bill, the thing to do is to send an email to your, in this case, the senator, who is going to be part of that committee, or your House representative. They love hearing from constituents. They want to know what you think. And that you can get all their contact information on the secretary's, or the, no, I just lost it. Who's the Legislative Services Office for the state of Colorado. So, for any bill. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Suzanne.
I take this seriously, and I obviously, I have strong personal views about how this is important, but I think this is an example of how our agendas get clogged up. You can write bills personally, but really, how does this really affect us? Is this really the most important thing we need to be spending our time on when we have limited agenda time? And that being said, I was just wondering who asked you to testify? You said something at the beginning of the meeting, I think.
The person that asked me to testify is Joan May, who is part of Colorado Communities for Climate Action. They're based
Okay,
in
so
Telluride.
it wasn't a person, a constituent. But no, I think it's a worthy cause, but I would hope that, you know, we have to like decide what are we going to be spending our time on. If signing things like this means that we have to do one meeting, we have to start cutting out meetings because we're taking more on than we actually need to be doing, then this is a problem. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Yeah. Okay. Oh, she said.
I remember it.
All right, what's
okay,
the,
the
oh, that
motion
you-
was that I testify on behalf of myself only. Did I get
County's
that right,
program.
Trustee Bear?
Okay.
Yeah. Not
All
as,
right.
not as representing the town.
Okay. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that motion
Nay.
carries. All right, Dave, carry on. All right, I think we are going to skip all committee reports tonight since we are 4 minutes from our second extension. Thank you, everyone, for coming and hanging out with us and all of that. Yes, Thomas?
Staff liaison was appointed by the Personnel Committee.
Say that again.
Was the staff liaison appointed? There was a
Yes, the liaison committees were appointed, and the names were just going to be updated this evening, and I didn't bring that in amongst my running back and forth, so it'll be continued on to the next.
All right,
All right.
thanks.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.